people who can take them and fake a new youth project, but to give the people who are working grassroots with young people, understand the language, know how to talk to them, because it's a critical point. And we have to understand that information doesn't reach young people as we believe it does. So we need to shift our way of talking to them. And I think we are already out of time and beyond. So I'm sorry I see so many questions. Please reach out to my panelists in a coffee break, in a lunch break, and get into details with them to answer your questions. And I'm very excited that it's a panel that raises so much curiosity, because it's a really important topic. Thank you so much. It's amazing. It's amazing job what they're doing. Keep up the optimism and the hope.
Thank you.
And now we are giving the floor back to our amazing moderator, which is hiding somewhere out here. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Did you miss me already or not? Yeah. Yeah, I know I'm your mental compass for this conference. I'm here. So I will do something very innovative and read the program from my phone. So we have a new fresh panel, which is new media environments in the digital age. And I want to call on stage Aaron Sarokman, if I said it correctly. You are the man. Come on stage. The game that... Give him an applause, don't...
Thank you. My panelists, you can all join me. Let's come on up. You know who you are. Let's get going.
And if you don't, I have your name, so I know.
Surprise. We're behind.
Wait a minute. You can also slide, okay? To send wishes to your mom or make comments for the panel.
All right. To quote Matthew McConaughey. All right. My name is Aaron Schrockman. I'm the Executive Director of PolitiFact and the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at the Poynter Institute in the United States. We teach and train journalists all over the country, in the US and all over the world. And obviously, as Executive Director of PolitiFact, I have a keen affinity for fact-checking and media literacy work. I'm just curious, how many of you are attending your first DCN event in person? Awesome, that's great. My first event was 2016. I went to Vilnius. It is a wonderful experience, and I hope that you continue to make the most out of it today and tomorrow, both listening to these sessions, but also interacting with each other whenever you get a chance. It's my privilege to be joined on stage by 5 great minds in the areas of media literacy and fact-checking, and it is my goal to speak as little as possible so they can share as much information as the time allows. We do also want to hear from you, and so please submit questions via Slido. I think that's very cool, and I will be sure to get to as many of those as possible. Okay? I'm hoping over the next half hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes if I can get it, that you'll be inspired by the stories of our participants, and that you'll be able to take some ideas back to your organizations. So let's start there. I'm going to ask my panelists to introduce themselves and their organizations and to explain briefly, and I will hold you to it, everyone, how your organizations came to be started, and then what was the need you identified in your country, like why are you doing this, and then how is that work being received?
Thank you, Awon. My name is Daisuke Futa from Japan. I'm editor-in-chief of Japan Fact Check Center. Yeah, obviously we are doing fact checking and media literacy education. We started our organization last year. Before that, in Japan, there is no fact check organization which has a signatory from International Fact Checking Network. So, the disinformation is everywhere, but we didn't have the proper organization to fight against disinformation. So we started. So when we start the media outlet or any project, you need money. So we found supporters. It's the Google Yahoo Japan. It's the big tech. Yeah. Before I start the Japan Logistics Center, I worked for Google, and before that, I was founding editor-in-chief of BuzzFeed Japan. It's a joint venture between BuzzFeed and Yahoo Japan. So I knew the people in Yahoo Japan. So I knew that they are looking for the person who can start the fact-check organization. So luckily, I found money. So it's really important point, and I think it will be the one of the themes we are talking about.
Can I ask one quick question? Why did it take so long for Japan to get a certified fact-checking organization relative to other countries?
Oh, great question. Yeah, in Japan, still the newspapers and broadcasters are really strong, and they are slow to move to the digital world. So they didn't care much about what's going on internet. That is the one reason. And the second reason is we have a really strong lifelong employment system. So the most of the journalists, they started work in one company and they work like more than 40 years. So there is no space for startup media.
Interesting. Thank you. Billion?
Hi everyone, it's Billion from Taiwan. I'm from CoFact. CoFact means collaborative fact checking, and as means as signify plurality and inclusive. I'm from civic community, GovZero. GovZero doesn't mean government. If you think that government is bad, so we rebuild the government from zero. From my civic community, we conduct different kinds of technology tools, fight against disinformation. I mean, we found a question about problem is that even though journalists and reporters can do really nice factual report and report around important issues, however, people don't read it, especially senior people and younger generations. So actually, we would like to imitate their way to let them read those important reports, just like on social media. So that's the reason why we conduct AI chatbot. We do have 3 AI features. One is multimedia fact check. That means you can do fact check on image, video, and audio. And the second is AI categorization. Since there's a lot of researchers think the need to seek some important issues that are categorized by the machine learning process. Although third one, we also connect to large language models to let AI chatbot conduct media literacy lessons. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Hi, my name is Shindong Kim. I teach media and communication at Hallyu University, South Korea. And I'm also representing a civic think tank, which is a knowledge co-op for good governance, through which we try to provide in-depth information about major social issues to the public, including media. So today, I'm surrounded by the fact checkers. I myself is not a fact checker, but the fact checking has become a very important issue in media education today. And in Korea, we actually successfully hosted an international fact checking conference a few months ago, first time out of the Asian countries. So today, I'm probably going to speak a little bit about the growing importance of fact checking in journalism and then in the society in general, and also how we can prepare for the battle, as entitled our session today for misinformation or disinformation.
Hi, my name is Ari Bosasmito. Call me Ari, it's easier. I am from Mavindo. Mavindo is Indonesian anti-hoax community. We started a small Facebook forum. The founder name is Hari Sufami, and I also help co-founded Mavindo, and we are grateful that being supported by DCI Network and by a lot of collaborators. Some of them are actually here, who happens to be, I'm the only male coming from Indonesia out of other ladies. So we are glad that in one side we are being challenged by a lot of our supporters and our donors and our partners by I often said that Martinez is a baby, but we actually don't have time to learn even to grow. But our partners, our donors are challenging us to, even though you're a baby, you have to run. So within only a few years, we are happy that we are verified by ICN, we are supported by Google, we are supported by Facebook, a lot of parties. Also, we are working with the organization. And glad to be here. And at the moment, I'm happy to tell you that we are able to work with the, unfortunately I cannot provide any presentation, but if you describe the information ecosystem today would be, we have the platforms, we have the governments and related, we have the CSO and NGO, we also have the netizen as the consumer. I'm happy to tell you that at the moment we are able to be grateful and proud to work with every member of the information ecosystem, which I often said that we cannot do this alone. This is definitely going to need everyone's help. And one of our biggest challenges would be to ask the public to also participate in how to get them to also actively spread our fact check articles, for example, because whenever there's a false information, like for example, it gets shared to 10,000 shares, it is typical not only from Apindo but also with other media in every country that the clarification doesn't even reach 1,000. So this is a typical problem that we're trying to work out. Thanks.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Paulo Miguel Ordonio from the Philippines. I am the Deputy Executive Director of Break the Fake Movement. We are a local civil society organization that champions media and information literacy by conducting various training and workshop focused on four themes, which is responsible digital citizenship, media and information literacy, combating information disorder, and creating positive participation. We started in 2016. It was founded by our founder and president right now. They joined a hackathon, and they did not win the said hackathon. They landed on the second place, but it gave them the passion to continue what they started. So they continue with the works to fight fake news, and that time 2016 is the rise of the disinformation environment in the Philippines related to the political. And right now we continue our efforts for more than 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. We created a platform where we continue capacitate on a grassroots level. We're training content creators, influencers, and even educators, youth, government officials, so that they can create their own community-led initiatives when it comes to MIM.
Great. Thank you, everyone. My first question, I'm going to go off script. I kind of told you I might. So earlier, Tom Wood, I thought, brought up a very interesting point when it comes to the discussion around trust and the discussion around fact checking. And I'm paraphrasing, but basically, a fact checker's role is to present corrective information, but that actually does not create trust. It actually sometimes hurts our trust because we're telling someone they're wrong. No one wants to be told they're wrong. I'm curious from your perspective if that's something you agree with. I welcome a differing perspective, which is to say, what is, for the fact checkers on this panel, how do you see your role? Is your role to correct misinformation? Is it to build, or is it to build trust in journalism or journal content creation. I'm curious how you think about it. I'm going to start with Ari, maybe, and then others chime in.
Yeah, thanks. It is also typical that whenever during certain political season, we are being doxxed. People hate. You said it. People are hate being corrected, and they disagree, and then they took our social media profile, and then they are saying nasty things to us. But for me, as a fact checker, we're not actually the one who decide this is wrong and this is right, but it's more like we are the middleman between the fact and you. We can actually show you the door that this is the fact using authoritative and valid references. So we actually at least for me as a community fact checker, I don't have any big media journalist backup. So I always try to use references and corroboration. So what I'm trying to say to the public is that this is not according to me, but according to this reference, this is false and this is the correct one. So basically, the burden of proof is not on me, not on the fact checker, but also by telling the public that this is the reason why you should provide an answer whether this is the correct information or false information. So basically, you need to use the strong references and the corroborative. Otherwise, people are going to chase on you. They're going to put the burden of proof. Why are you saying this is a false information? So I often telling myself that you have to try uh, so much, even sometimes too much, including location verification whenever you try to check misinformation whenever whenever it's involved location. And if I cannot find any valid references, then obviously I'm not going to fact check it. That's the safest way for me. Thanks.
Um, I think the the building trust is not the work for fact checkers. It's more related to media literacy educators. And for me, fact check is all about non-partisanship. So if we check the disinformation from liberal side, the liberal people just criticize us, or you are too conservative. And if we check the disinformation from conservative side, that they call you are too liberal. But I don't care. We are just serving for the people, audience, from the non-partisanship point of view. Then the yeah the problem is trust is a really tricky word. If you ask the people what you trust, they say like the Fox News or something like that. If you ask the little people, they have a different answer. So if you think about the trust when you fact check, it's sometimes become a roadblock to select what we should check.
Mm.
So as a fact checker, I don't think about that.
I'm curious, yeah, on the media literacy point, is trust important for you?
I think media and information literacy is equivalent to critical thinking. And that is what we activate in the various capacity building workshops that we are conducting. Fact checking can be seen by others by being subjective. They have their own version of truth, and the bias is getting bigger and bigger. And that's a result of creating more echo chambers. In the Philippines, it is always a challenge because of various political colors. When you correct something or something posted on the internet that is against their political belief or any belief, you will be tagged as the one who is creating this information. That is why we are very intentional in reaching out people to educate them, not imposing to them that this is the right thing, this is how we should do it. But yeah, we have the steps to do it. But the most important thing is seeing the person behind that. Where does he or she coming from those kind of beliefs? And that is why we are very passionate in linking people to be critical thinkers. Let them analyze the facts by themselves. Let them analyze the data that they are consuming. And from that, we are creating small steps to create a bridge in various echo chambers.
I'm curious, do you use political in doing that, or do you try to avoid political examples?
Actually, we are trying to, in as much as we can, we're trying not to use political examples because the connotation of some Filipinos in us that when they hear about politics, they will not be interested. but because it is different from what they're believing in. So we are leaning to some basic disinformation tactics like how to avoid scams, which is very prominent in the Philippines, and other concerns that they are very much experiencing in the community where they belong.
Shin, do you want to offer your perspective here?
Well, back to Daisuke, if the fact checkers are checking the facts, then who's going to check fact checkers? So this is a matter of social trust based on, and the battle for facts. The battle for facts. If this is the battle, unfortunately, in reality, then who's our enemies? Who we are, fighting against? Are we fighting against? Presumably, there is a evil, organization or evil people somewhere out there, and then keep producing disinformation or misinformation. Whereas we are freedom fighters, checking the facts and then seeking the truth. It's not how it's working. My point of view is that the enemy of disinformation, no, I mean, the enemy that we are fighting against in search for fact is none other than ourselves. Because disinformation and misinformation is based on the human psychology of mitigating or meeting and consuming the information. So I've been discussing this issue with some of our other friends, in other times. But it's probably about time for us to turn the frame of the question, meeting with this information issue. The disinformation thing has become a major issue not only in journalism but in society at large today. Paradoxically, because we've been empowered by the digital media. Everybody now can reach the mass public globally, and then this everybody is never uh, bear the responsibility, whatever they talk on the YouTube, So that out from here, I mean, our friend Nikos said that the citizen journalism or citizen journalist does bring a problem to the situation. Unlicensed, poorly equipped, poorly trained, irresponsible speakers are too easily, reaching, millions of people. And how can we? I mean, is that possible? The small number of fact checkers actually checking all the facts circulating in the world? No, it's impossible. So in the battleground that we need to turn the frame of the question, and then probably we will have to seek answer in strengthening every one of us. It's like when we are eating food, you're very careful whether the food is toxic or not. But in the case of information consumption, we are not that much cautious, because we have never been educated and then trained to be cautious enough against eating, consuming the information.
Yeah. Billion, I want to ask you, one of the things that came up is how we decide what to fact check. And I think that might have been a question that came up from the audience as well. So in the case of Kofax, how are you deciding what claims or statements you're going to fact check versus not?
Contact system based on the appeal from the audiences. So actually, we collect all the data and all the appeals from the audiences. So for example, if there's some disinformation is really popular, it's going viral, it got really much clicks and appeals from the audiences. So we might put them as a much more priority among all the disinformation. And as I would say fact checking is an art. So who check fact checkers? Actually, in our view, I won't call ourselves as fact checkers. What Coca-Cola is trying to do is empower everyone can be a fact checkers. So that we call it civic empowerment. As long as we do that civic empowerment, that means people can review and can pay attention on what they are really reading on the information. We call it information diet. You need to focus on what information and what news you are reading, and also we need to do review with the critical thinking among all the disinformation. That makes fact check can be teachable, trainable, and important skills among everyone.
Show of hands, how many of you are working with college students in journalism or media literacy? So yeah, I think okay, I thought all of you are. I'm curious, and maybe quickly, I'd love to hear from everyone this on down the line. Younger generation, are they going to be better and more prepared to be kind of that empowered digital citizen, to be a better fact checker than maybe the veteran journalists? Like, do you see hope in working with students or younger journalists? You could say no, that's fine too.
Um, yeah, some of our interns, they are really good at like editing videos, and they know how to make it relatable to their generation, Gen Z. They are good at using the technologies. Some can use AI machine learning by themselves, so they are really great, smart. But, but, um, about the news literacy, they don't have much experience to consume news, so they don't know much about the what media outlet, who the journalists are reliable. So they can be cheated really easily. So they still need training, and we are giving that kind of training, the news literacy or information literacy.
Interesting. Yeah, whoever wants to go, just go.
I would like to dwell still on the analogy of battleground. So if we are in the battleground fighting against the disinformation, then who are the soldiers? So the fact checkers are soldiers. I guess, as Billion said, every one of us should become the soldiers fighting against the disinformation. That means that we have to be equipped with the proper weapon. What should be the weapon in the process of fighting against misinformation and disinformation? And the weapon is proper education and training. If we do not know how to discern, what is good and what is reliable news, and so that's why we eventually turned to media education and media literacy education. And unfortunately, I'm a professor in journalism and media program, but we do not even have a proper course fully developed for the media literacy course. And many of us kept talking about the importance of media literacy program, but how come we don't have it? And so it's right now is the time for us to, pooling our resources for developing the media literacy education and training. This is the time for us to train the trainer. We don't have the, well-trained media fact checker, for example. So media fact checker, journalism fact checker is one of these like a trainers. So maybe DCN could evolve and then expand its function in terms of building the resources in fighting against disinformation, training the trainers, and then building up the course designs and materials to spread. And then many of us can work based on that resources.
Ari and then Paulo, I'm curious how you're working with young people.
We are also working with young people, but answering your question from being optimistic point of view, yes, we are optimistic that at least me, I'm seeing that there's a different behavior between when you post your fact check article to Facebook, for example, and then you post it in Instagram and TikTok. People are more resistant in Facebook, meaning that it's also famous that Instagram and TikTok are for younger generation, while Facebook is for the older. And the second thing is that it's also common in WhatsApp is really popular in Indonesia. Whenever the digital migrants are being corrected by the youngsters, they get at least going to be kicked out of the WhatsApp group because I'm older than you, I'm senior than you, you know nothing. I born before you, so I know more than you. So basically, that's the behavior of the digital migrant that we are having difficulties to deal with. Uh, but we're being optimistic because eventually today's generation will replace the older generation, the digital migrant, and I think they're going to lead the battle for fact, like what you mentioned. We're talking about the standard. At the moment, UNESCO already provide a guidebook to also to provide training for whether youngsters or those who are willing to training. And also at the moment, has become a trend that it's not just debunking. Debunking is something that being reactive, meaning that you need to see the misinformation first, and then the correction will come. These days, there are such thing called pre-banking where people are being trained like for example, Indonesia, we're developing in order to be preparing for the next election. So we're looking at the way how people produce false information, looking at patterns from the previous example, and then having a focus discussion group with the election monitoring and related, and provide the public for the training. So basically, when you're seeing some old pattern, people will easily see that I've seen this before. So quick banking is something that at these days we're hoping that the load for fact checking is not just to the fact checker, because no matter how many fact checker organization, journalists, and news media are publishing daily fact checking, then it seems to be it's never enough. We're counting also the public that we need your help at least also to distribute our fact check, but also you guys also need to be fact checking at least just for yourself.
Okay, to answer the question, yes, we are very hopeful, and I think we are doing right now that in the Philippines. So we all know that the Philippines has been tagged as the social media capital in the world. So we have a lot of digital natives who are very, very familiar when it comes to the concept of the internet and how to use it. And I think there are many efforts that we are doing. We are just one of the civil society organizations that promotes MIL in our country. I think it's a good start that in our curriculum in the senior high school, the MIL or the media information literacy is part of their curriculum, which is a great start for the young learners. Also, we are very having a strong collaboration with a multi-stakeholder approach. The CSOs are very close in coordination with academic sector and even the media. So us, the organization, is not a fact checker, but we are very strong ally of the accredited fact checkers in the Philippines. In addition to that, in our organization's Break the Fake movement, when it comes to the young learners and also the young leaders, it started when we developed the program named Media Civics Lab. It is intended for the young official leaders who has been elected through our Sangguniang Kabataan. We tapped them during the surge of the COVID-19 because of the disinformation in various communities. And that's a great start that these young leaders created their own initiatives by using the government funds to create more offline approach when it comes to teaching about media information literacy. In addition to that, we level up the program. We develop a fact-checking academy where we tap content creators and influencers, specifically those who are in the young age, in the Gen Zs, where we activate them to use their social media for promoting social good, for creating contents, not just focusing on entertainment, but also educational side, the merge of it, which is the edutainment. So I think it's very highlighting in the Philippines the efforts of the youth as well as a very important ally to promote critical thinking and combat disinformation.
Those cool programs, I assume you'll happily talk more about them if anyone wants to. Yeah, great. Um, uh, Time flies when you're talking about facts. I got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to try to move a little rapidly here. I do want to try to get to a couple of your questions as well. Billion, I want to ask you, you talked about AI and the work you're doing using AI chatbots at Kofax. How is artificial intelligence changing the work you do on a daily basis?
People might think AI might generate much more disinformation. I won't think that's wrong. But actually, since AI can be a wave, so what we're trying to do is to collaborate with AI. We are much more engineers. So at first, we start with this project since open source. That means everyone can break our source code and make another version in the country. Like Thailand has already broke our source code and make it available in Thailand as well. As for AI, I want to say if AI can really do something for ourselves, we would say AI means a lot of like data set with data, and we want those data can be helpful among all journalism, all the reporters, and all fact checkers, also those think tanks and research institutes. From our side, we want make people think and know more about AI. We don't want AI make much more like a buzzword. Like every conferences recently, also in this year, people might talk about AI. But AI is just a large data set. Actually, people can research on AI for several years, even a decade. So actually, what people are trying to do is to reduce the gap, especially for those who are suffering from poverty and rural side. Or we might that enlarge the gap between those who knows AI but who don't know AI.
Who's doing the work for you? Like who's do you have technologists on your team or like?
Yes, actually, because we are much more like civic community. So most of the development team, they are engineers. Actually, there's only one me. I'm from political science background. Sorry.
No, very good. All good. All right, let's do a couple questions from the group. Brian has three of them. So, Brian, which one do you want me to ask? One, two, or three? Where are you at, Brian? Which one? One. Okay. How do you engage with social media platforms to collaborate in the fight against misinformation? What more can be done to strengthen this partnership? Maybe Ari, I'll go to you on that.
Yeah, so far I think several platforms are already quite supportive. Like for example, the Meta, they have this program called the third-party fact checking, where we can actually flag contents and they will reduce the distribution. But again, platforms, since they are profit oriented, then obviously uh, it's going to they usually will fill in the gap when government asks them what is your part on reducing misinformation. They usually will fill in that part. But we are quite grateful that platforms are being supportive. But the debate is always typically it's about the how to maintain the balance between the freedom of expression and speech versus this is not censorship. So it's difficult to try to maintain that. But one of the most important would be is to be transparent on the way how you do it. Like Martin is using the standard by First Draft News using 7 category of misinformation. So but we also provide the public that this is the standard that we are using, and again, it is not whether this is false or fact according to us, but it's more like we are providing the strong references of the reason why we're considering a false information and why we clarify misinformation. So the burden of proof is not to fact check ourselves, but it's more like to providing the public gateway or showing the door that hey guys, this is the correct information and this is our reference.
I would add on the social media platform piece a couple things that stand out to me. Facebook's program, you're not able to fact check politicians. I think any fact checking that fact checker does should apply evenly to any person, whether they're the president or an average citizen. It is strange to me that I could say something and my post would be rated false, but President Joe Biden could say the same exact thing and his post would have no consequences. I think that's odd, and I think we should look into trying to strengthen those enforcements. The second thing I would say that I think is really critical and we have to understand here is the social media platforms, particularly Meta, has contributed financially to the largest expansion of fact checking in the world we've ever had as an industry or profession. They have now something close to 100 fact checkers working across the world. They are paying those fact checkers and helping sustain those organizations. That is really great. But in order to receive payment, you are doing most of your fact checking work on one platform, Facebook, at the expense, I would argue, potentially, of other platforms that are just as likely to share or spread misinformation, whether it's TikTok or Twitter, certainly, or YouTube. And so I do think I would hope more platforms would come to the table to work with fact checkers on a solution so that we might be, and I should say not a solution, part of a solution, right?
This is a long fight in which we are one soldier, but there needs to be many others. And I'm told that is it. So thank you very much. Great panel. They're going to be around. Ask some more questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you very, very much. No, we have more. So, are you hungry? No, no. You're not hungry. You're not hungry. Yeah, you're just a bit stressed. So take a deep breath, and you will forget that you are hungry. Before I introduce our next speaker, not plans, next speaker, let's make some vibe. Can I have some music? Hmm? And get your phones. And I have in there. You can make a meme from this and post it on social. You can tag me. You can tag DCN. You can tag. Don't tag my mother. She will get angry. Okay. And okay, do we have? You want with me or without me? We can do it. With me. Okay. You can say that I'm more handsome, but okay, super. So, without further ado, let's welcome our next speaker, Peter. Peter, you are with us. A huge applause for Peter. Thank you very much. There is a clicker just right at the podium.
Hopefully I know how to use this. All right, I'll try and keep this tight. I know you guys are all pretty hungry, so I'll try and keep this as brief as I can and get you guys eating so you're much happier for those afternoon ones. I'll be talking about disinformation laundering, specifically how state media exploits or gets exploited through disinformation laundering. I do believe in disclosing your funders and who's funding you, so this project has been largely funded through the European Media Information Fund and administered by the Gulbenkian Foundation. I'm Peter Benzoni. I work at an organization called the Alliance for Securing Democracy in Washington, D.C. We do a whole bunch of stuff tracking Russian, Chinese, Iranian state media and trying to fight threats to democracy from autocracies around the world. Moving on, I think it's important to contextualize. Wow, I'm sorry, that's so bright. I think it's important to contextualize where and why disinformation needs to be laundered, because why wouldn't somebody just go to RT.com or Sputnik.com, these Russian state media, and get their information from those sites? As you may have heard, Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2022. As a result of that, there was a wave of bans in the EU, in Singapore, and in other places from New Zealand to Canada, all around the world, of bans on RT, both streamed via TV and oftentimes by blocking their actual domain. This did not go unpunished by RT and Sputnik and these other Russian state media. They, in response, launched 2 or 3 new outlets focusing on India, RT Hindi, the Balkans, and a variety of other locales, as well as moving a lot of their social media to what is now considered fringe state media, Odyssey, Gab, Library Video. And if you want to know more about that, come to my talk later. So yeah, you basically saw this migration away as they were banned from these mainstream platforms to these other platforms, but their sort of base content, their articles, still need to get to the end users that they're interested in getting the disinformation to. So, first, what is disinformation, or what is information laundering? Because it isn't necessarily always disinformation. Information laundering fundamentally is the same process as money laundering. You want to place layer and then integrate your money, or in this case, information, into the information ecosystem so that it is seen as legitimate rather than as illegitimate or associated with an illegitimate entity. What this means is you get your false information and it becomes true or trustworthy, in boiling it down. So this isn't a new phenomenon at all. And this is the first step of this happening. In 1983, right when AIDS was becoming prominent, the KGB launched an operation through the Stasi, essentially placing a story in a New Delhi-based newspaper, which was primarily Soviet-funded, saying, hey, we think that maybe the AIDS virus is HIV, was manufactured in Fort Detrick, Maryland. And if anybody who knows anything about modern conspiracy theories and viruses, that name may be familiar. This was manufactured in Fort Detrick, Maryland, and used to essentially cull the rest of the world and to blame it on other countries. The next step that happened was layering in this story. The story picked up after about 6 months by a very prominent and sort of high-class Soviet outlet, the name of which escapes me, but it ends Gazeta. From that Soviet outlet, it gets reposted in Finland, in Kuwait, in Peru, and in some more alternative media in the U.S., essentially creating this corpus of laundered information that can be built upon. So this is the muddling of where this information came from, right? That isn't clearly linked to this single Soviet-linked newspaper. Here's 10 other people that are reporting on it. Finally, we integrate the information into the existing information ecosystem. So you guys may remember Dan Rather, CBS News. This is one of the most prominent, and was at the time arguably the most prominent news broadcaster at the time. CBS was forced to report on this story as though it were at least somewhat legitimate, and notably several presidential candidates at the time in the 1984 election either had to respond to or had cited this actually as part of their platform. Although one of them used it to say the Soviets did it, which is a whole nother complicated thing. So you can see that there's this process from placing the story to it being existing and being legitimized as news worthy of Dan Rather's regard. So this is still happening today, and it's still happening in the same kind of ways today, to be clear. So this is a good example. This Deutsche Welle is a relatively good newspaper. They had this interview or this statement that they had to run a piece on by a Russian sub-minister of defense saying, "Hey, we think the U.S. is testing biological weapons and killing people in Ukraine." Deutsche Welle, to be clear, in this article debunks it, does not give legitimacy to this story, but that headline and the quotes in that content is picked up by a whole bunch of different sort of conspiracy-oriented blogs. And what actually happens is it cycles back into the state media ecosystem, and you get Sputnik reporting on this as though it were
this process of information laundering. So the fundamental problem that happens with information laundering is these twofold. First, you get these cascading citations where Deutsche Welle gets cited, and then Becky's blog, and then Sputnik gets cited, and then somehow it makes it onto, InfoWars or Breitbart, right? And it becomes very unclear that the original point of the story was a bunk and bogus interview with essentially somebody simping for a Russian state government. The other sort of thing that happens here, and what I want to focus on primarily for this presentation, is this cheap digital publishing that allows you to scale disinformation networks extremely quickly and with a high degree of impact and a high focus of impact. So how that actually happens, the mechanisms by which that happens, are threefold. I'm going to be focusing mainly on 1 and 3 here, mere and alternative sites. To be clear, this is RT creating another site and saying, hey, here's another place you can find our content. They openly claim this. They will say as much, go and find our RT content on swenter.site or on actualidad-rt.com. The next way that you can get it is through aggregators. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these, but these are essentially knockoff Google News sites. Typically, they just give you the title, a brief content summary, and then a link to the original articles. These are more or less legitimate ways of getting content here. Finally, there's these copy and paste sites, which take content wholesale and repost it as though it were their own. And what's most interesting is where and how these sites' content ends up and who it focuses on, who it targets. But first, let's talk about those domains. I should not have picked a bright white background. So the sort of impetus behind those mirror sites is as platforms and as Google downranks or outright bans the domains that they're using, like rt.com, they say, hey, if you can't access it here, go ahead and find it at this other site. So you can actually see on this graph over here that as at some point during their posts of using actualidad.rt.com, they switch over to actualidad-rt.com, and then something causes them to, I believe that Google banned actualidad-rt.com from appearing on Google News. They switch back over to esrt.press, basically so that they can keep getting on these sort of high-profile news aggregators while maintaining their brand of rt.com as content they want. And to be clear, they're quite open about this, right? They're saying, hey, if you can't access our content, for those of you who can't read Spanish, hey everybody, if you can't access our content, please go to rt.com, and you can also look at it on VK. So they're openly saying, this is our content, here's where to find it, here's a mirror site. What I think this gets more interesting is when content gets wholesale posted as though rt.com is a newswire, and to be clear, RT is not a newswire site, to other media. And I want to be clear, Fars News Agency, that's Iranian state media. Azerbaijan 24 does not have any association with the government, but it's weird that it's posting on Azerbaijan. InfoWars is a far-right American site run by Alex Jones, among other people. So you can see that this RT content ends up in places that really are fundamentally diametrically opposed to each other. I don't know that InfoWars would want to be sharing the same content as far as News Agency if they knew. But you get this phenomenon of content appearing from RT and appearing all over the world, from Venezuelan to Iranian state media to American far right to the last one's a Hindi news, largely Hindi news outside of their RT content. And one of the phenomenon in this that we zoomed in on, and is sort of the impetus for the disinformation laundromat tool, which we'll get into later, is these faux local news sites which pretend to be from Albuquerque, or one of the most interesting ones that we found lately actually is called the Malaysia Sun, which is not a legitimate and real newspaper, but did pop up a whole bunch when we were researching data voids and how those are being exploited by both RT, and when RT is being banned from it, basically Malaysia Sun and Big News Network, the owner of Malaysia Sun, fills in that void for both, in this case, UK content, but we've seen that in Southeast Asia, our searches of Southeast Asian content as well. So this is a phenomenon that you can go ahead and try out on your own if you want. If you put in Biden docs on Google News, you're going to see Big News Network pop up. You won't see RT, but you'll see Big News Network, and you'll see Little Rock AR News here at the bottom. It's blocked, but trust me, it says Little Rock AR News. So the way that this sort of gets the content on there is you create these portfolios of content that's posting anytime any story from RT mentions Africa, it posts to Africa Leader. Anytime it mentions Arab or the Arab world or whatever key terms they choose to represent the Arab world, it posts to the Arab Herald. And you get that all the way down through all of these different regions, nations, down to the level of cities like Little Rock, Arkansas. So let's actually dig into this Little Rock AR News problem here. So if you remember that original one that we saw, this is almost an identical recreation of that, with one weird little thing here, that round rather than around. If you see, they start changing out really weird phrasings for these words. Classified material switches out for delicate surprise, earlier than switches out for before, and round rather than around. So these are not the most sophisticated versions now websites. These are people who just copy and find and replace. We think to avoid basically that filter when you Google something and it says, oh, we found 7 results that were very similar to this result. This lets them get around that filter in a relatively unsophisticated way, which says something about Google's filters, but don't tell them I said that. And when you actually dig into the meat of these websites, you find that they look almost identical, right? Like even down to this logo, it's orange and black, orange and black. The about on the authors is the same. When you go into the privacy policies, they're identical. The sitemap is the same. The CSS, the HTML is all 99% similar. When you use basic OSINT techniques to dig into this, you find that they're hosting not in Albuquerque or Little Rock, but they're registered, not hosting, registered in Reykjavik and hosting essentially through an IP in the UAE when you actually dig into it. So not local news sites. The way that we actually were able to track down this full network of sites was by finding these names, relatively unique names, that we were able to Google and use other sort of basic OSINT techniques, nothing very complicated, to find a list of 80 or so, here's the first 30, faux local news sites that were all reposting regularly RT content as though, people in Pasadena, California want that information. So it's very clear that despite a ban on Russian state media in many of these places, RT and other sort of banned content continues to reach audiences through these mechanisms, mirror and proxy sites, and as well as these third-party websites. How does one actually find those networks in any sort of way that scales, right? You can't just have me and another analyst Googling these things all day, right? It's a waste of our time. So this is how we're tackling this problem of what to do about information laundering. We've created a tool that discovers the linkages between 2 or more websites using either the content or, as you saw with those nearly identical looking sites, the architecture of those websites and using basic web forensic techniques. The way that we do this is twofold, coming together into one, matching indicators. So first, we need to be able to generate leads to find suspicious pieces of content. So we need to be able to say, hey, do we see this RT headline popping up on these 5 other places? And so we need to take a look at these websites and see if they're part of any known network that we already know about, or if they're a new phenomenon. So that then leads us to the web forensics. What we do with basically given a URL, drop it into the web forensic tool, find out a whole bunch of information about that website, what Google AdSense ID they're using, what crypto wallets they're asking for money on, what CSS classes and HTML classes they're using. And then it takes and finds matches both in the content of those pages and in the structure, the architecture of the web pages themselves between the two, between sort of the corpus of known bad sites or known neutral sites and the news site that you're interested in finding out whether it belongs to a network or not. This boils down into 3 categories of evidence that you can then use. And the best way to think about this is though you're building a case against someone, right? There's a smoking gun, but then there's circumstantial evidence, like does somebody have an alibi, do they have motive, do they have opportunity? I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on these. You can find these on our GitHub, which I'll link to later, but the conclusive tier ones are, hey, these are smoking guns. If somebody has the same AdSense ID on their website, they're probably the same person doing their website. We're associative, and the tertiary points of evidence say, hey, there's something fishy here, spend some more time investigating it. So this is something like, hey, we're using the same CSS classes, we're using the same universal unique identifiers, which if it's a universal unique identifier, it should be universally unique. So if you want to try this out, you can go to disinfoid.com, right up there, or scan that QR code, and hopefully this doesn't crash it, but we'll see. It will take about a minute to run because what it does is go out to Google, Google News, Bing, Bing News, Yahoo, Yandex, DuckDuckGo, somewhere else, and find a bunch of information from those sites. The easiest way to find this is go on RT.com, find a random headline, drop it in there, see what else pops up. But for now, I'll have them pull up a demonstration of this, if you will. And so not relying on it not to crash. We entered a query for this RT article that's linked on the next tab over. If you're just looking at your weapons left for Ukraine in Europe by Politico, and if you hop back to the main tab, we just dropped that headline right into the thing. Do not actually do that again, because I don't know how long it's going to take. But if you want to scroll down to results, and just click View Links for Big News Network. It's about the sixth one down. You can see that there's no weapons left for Ukraine in Politico. It's an identical. It's identical to that same link, and if you actually open up that link, go ahead and click on it if you don't mind, you have content that is identical to RT.com. They do, two big news networks credit, they do cite it, but not everyone does. But content is completely identical to the RT content that was posted on this site. So this is a way of generating leads for that. And the idea being when you find a lead that pays off here, you go back into that disinfo ID tool, you grab the link that you're interested in, specifically the domain name, put it in the other text box, and have it fingerprint the website, which you can then use to match against the queries. Don't do that because it's super complex and kind of boring, and you have to spend a lot of time sort of trying to match those fingerprints. So we'll skip over that for now and get back to the presentation. Cool. So no presentation, I think, today is complete without talking about how AI is going to affect the problem that you're dealing with. As with anything else, I think the fundamental problems will be accelerating and scaling problems. These are all things that humans can do, but AI lets you do cheaper, faster, and better. So in trying to detect these in the future, I think what we're going to have to look out for is AI tools altering content in such a way that you're unable to just say, hey, these come from the same sources, while still using the base text as your source text. Basically, being able to alter images or text slightly to get around these problems, as well as if this tool is open source, so if, say, Russia knows about it and they want to start dynamically generating websites which can get around the known detection methods of this tool, they can do that, and they can have it, as we roll out things to new tool, have their websites get tweaked in that same way. As well as you can throw a bunch of noise, so you can throw a wrench into the machine, right? You can always say, hey, here's a website that looks exactly like one of these fake news websites, but is actually just pictures of cats, right? Finally, and I think the hardest problem to tackle, is pure synthetic content generation, when there's no obvious links between it, but gets across all of the points that you want to do. But no discussion of challenges is complete without opportunities. Here's where I think this tool and tools like it can grow in the future. Primarily anomaly detection and predictive analysis, I think, are going to be the most interesting avenues of using AI here, of saying, hey, there's patterns I'm not going to be able to recognize as an analyst in the way that these websites are made, where you can start to build out these networks and say, hey, here's one network that looks really different, but different in a way that suggests something bad or good. And similarly, allows you to start then building clusters and classification networks. So you're able to start saying, hey, we think that these 10 sites, which are all definitely a bad site, are very, very closely related to these other seemingly innocuous 10 websites, and you can say, oh, these are actually extensions of this existing propaganda network because they share these few items, but they're all clustered together in a very similar way. As well as, I think, integration with basic translation tools. There's almost no way detecting when Spanish language content, for example, gets ported over to English language right now and is reposted on another site. There's nobody, as far as I know, doing that sort of detection and putting out into the world. So I think that integration with translation tools will allow detection mechanisms across language, as well as allowing to create a whole bunch of new indicators to save time and increase the efficiency of these tools and these detection methods. So, thank you all for coming. If there's any questions, let me know. Otherwise, you can find me, Bart. I'll be around.
Thank you very much. So, the good news are that the food is just outside the door, okay? But before we go, just a few things. One thing is that the great thing about DCN is that all the speakers and all the panelists are staying with us during the day, during lunch, so go and speak to each other. Don't force me to close the internet in order to speak to each other, okay? So, go and speak to each other, network, post things on social media, tag DCN Global, use the hashtags, use WhatsApp group, send us memes, send us love, and enjoy lunch. We will be back in 1 hour. Thank you very much.
University of California, San Diego, United States. Second panelist is Viata Dzinbaya, founder and head of the Digital Diplomacy Task Force, co-founder at Lead Exchange, International Security and Digital Diplomacy in the Fletcher School, United States. Third panelist, Tomoko Nagasako, a researcher from the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, Japan. Yes, please join the stage and please give the round of applause. And finally, Paul Yu, the director and cybersecurity expert at Trend Micro, Taiwan. So we have four great speakers, but first of all, I'd like to address the audience. Take your phones, open the slide view, and we will make the search, the small survey. Please answer the question, which source, the country, organization you see as the most dangerous source of disinformation and propaganda? And we will check now. Other is winning. And when you say other, which countries could you say? Huh? Which ones? Okay, someone from online perhaps is answering. Okay, China is going up. China 67, 50%. Others, extremist terrorist groups, and Russia is losing. If you ask the same question in Europe, you know, Russia will be the first. So it always depends on the region you ask. Okay, so China is leading. Now 29 votes. In the morning we had about 100 active people, so please, I know that all of you are working with spatial right now, but TikTok that we mentioned this morning today was also part of the scheme. Of course, no, TikTok is trying to distance themselves from China recently, but it doesn't mean it becomes less connected or a less important element of Chinese propaganda and disinformation. And about others, could you, in the audience, could you answer which countries or organization you mean when you answer others? Any? No, no one is recording you from the stage. You have camera only here. I don't hear, sorry.
You can post anonymous comments with the other sources that you are.
Very good idea. So there is in your slide also the tab comments, and you can write the countries which are not mentioned in this poll. Okay, I think China won here. Others on the third place. Russia is third, 13%, and extremist and terrorist groups 13%. And the next question will be, which platforms do they use? Which platforms are the most important for creators of propaganda and disinformation? Yeah. So we have several options: social media, traditional media, dark and deep web, public politics, word of mouth, and messaging apps. I can add multiple options, so you can answer several times if you're not enough only with one option. So we have social media leading. It's not surprising. Messaging apps, we mean Signal, WhatsApp, Telegram. Public politics, you know what we mean, and what politicians are using public politics to spread disinformation, and it's very difficult to keep them accountable for everything they say. And word of mouth, 20%, traditional media, the last one, perhaps because traditional media are much more controlled by the society in most of our countries compared to social media and other platforms. Look, so we have these results. You can continue voting. And now I'd like to give the floor to our brilliant panelists to make a short introduction about how they see the current situation. Can we keep on the screen the voting? To answer the situation with the foreign malign propaganda disinformation, but also to comment these results. And perhaps let's start with with Tomoko Nagasako from Japan. You have microphone? Yes.
Good day, everyone. I'm Tomoko Nagasako from Japan. Now I am visiting research fellow at the Institute of Information Security. But previously, I worked as a research fellow at Sasuka Peace Foundation, and next month I will start to work in the governmental agency, Information Promotion Agency, Japan.
Yes, but please, can you describe how you see in the region, East Asia, Southeast Asia, and globally the situation with disinformation propaganda? What are the main sources and how you can comment these results? Do you agree with them?
Yes, so I send some presentation file to the staff, so can I use this very quick presentation?
Of course, of course. So can we switch on the presentation slides of Tomoko?
Thank you very much. And can I borrow the... yeah, yes. Thank you very much.
The green button.
Green button? Oh, yes. Yes, thank you. Okay. So let me have a very, very quick presentation for explanation of the regional propaganda and foreign disinformation. So this is my introduction, but these days I'm tackling with researching disinformation, and previously our research project published policy recommendation prepare for foreign disinformation campaign, and the part of concept was adapted of the governmental national security strategy. So this is my quick presentation. So these days, I think we must recognize that the disinformation operation is a part of warfare, especially information warfare, and it is targeting not only our cyberspace and the human cognition due to information manipulating cyber attack using disinformation and strategic narrative. And as for countermeasures, under this hybrid warfare situation, these dimensions are corresponding: cybersecurity policy and defense strategy, legal and regulatory frameworks, election security, fact-check and media literacy, comprehensive countermeasures. And in this chronology, we are tackling with disinformation against some incidents of disinformation, such as the democratic process, election, or something referendum, or and so on. But I think this is countermeasures are behind by the latest incidents. And this is regional. This is my result of the regional character of disinformation, especially in the democratic process since 2016. As you can see, purple points shows incident by Russia, and red points shows the case by China. And as you can see, it shows a regional characteristic. So especially China is interested in the Indo-Pacific islands. And this is the latest case of disinformation around Japan. It is the topic of treated water. And some reports pointed out that Chinese government and the state media and state-sponsored influencers have been running coordinated disinformation campaign. And they would like to amplify climate change misinformation or some health information also. And also they aim the failure of the US and its allies and the inability of international orders. So, this is my insight for policy recommendation to for the participants in this today's floor, of, especially in Indo-Pacific region. So tackling this so as to tackle. Okay. Yes, sorry. I'd like to offer the two ideas. So so as to counter disinformation. So free and open Indo-Pacific strategy, FOIP versus disinfo initiative modeled on the EU versus disinfo, and also establishment of the Indo-Pacific hybrid COE, disinformation operations as a part of hybrid threats and hybrid warfare, and should be led by such centers to disseminate information such as FOIP versus disinfo case studies in the Indo-Pacific, developing common countermeasures, helping countries devise countermeasures, and fact-checking. So this is my quick presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tomoko. And I'd like to switch to Patrick James Chester. Do you have slides or just?
No slides.
Super. So we just touched China, and we saw the Chinese influence around the world. Perhaps can you elaborate on that, and the difference of Chinese propaganda to other propaganda?
Certainly. So as you mentioned before, I'm a postdoctoral candidate at University of California, the China Data Lab. And so China has, I would say, a two-pronged propaganda strategy. There's domestic-facing and foreign-facing. And its domestic-facing propaganda, I would say, is perhaps the most sophisticated in the world. It has an incredible amount of control over its domestic information environment, a very powerful censorship apparatus, such that it is difficult for anyone except for the most technologically sophisticated people in China to get information from outside sources. As for China's foreign-facing disinformation, I do research involving WeChat, right, which is a Chinese social media app analogous to WhatsApp. And I have a research project with my co-author Audrey Wong at University of Southern California, in which we find that there are, in fact, Chinese state-sponsored narratives that are targeted towards, say, Chinese diaspora in the United States, right? So there does appear to be a propaganda effort targeting Americans and people residing in the United States. Now, as to whether or not these narratives are effective is a very different question, right? And I would say that China's capacity to persuade people, especially political figures, to adopt their policy positions, at least in the case of the United States, appears to be much more limited than other actors such as Russia, right? So why this is the case is an open question. I will say, though, that there's a study that came out fairly recently by Daniel Mattingly and several of his co-authors that suggests that exposure to propaganda, especially Chinese propaganda, can be effective if it is unchallenged, right? If you only receive that narrative, subjects tend to perceive the Chinese system of government more positively and America's system of government, democratic liberal democracy, as more negative, right? When people are exposed to both narratives, their minds are much less elastic. Their beliefs are much less likely to change. So if we were talking about, going back to the question, the poll, if we're talking about domestic-facing propaganda, I would say China wins. If we're talking about foreign-facing propaganda, I would, my vote would go for Russia. So, thank you.
Can you give some examples of narratives that China spread in external propaganda?
Oh, absolutely. So in my WeChat paper, one of the core narratives that I found was targeting democratic coverage of democratic countries with specific attributes, right? Kind of associating democratic countries with more chaotic and corruption type sentiment, right? So if you are reading news from certain official accounts on WeChat, and you encounter an article about, let's say, the United States, chances are you would see news portraying, let's say, chaotic political events in the United States, or perhaps events related to ethnic conflict. And that will shape your perception of the United States over time if you are a regular consumer of this news. At least that's the expectation.
So, like the world is chaotic, everything is on fire, and only in China there is stability and peace.
Not just China necessarily. So other authoritarian countries get kind of a bit of a pass, right, in their coverage. So maybe if you read an article about North Korea on a state-run official account, it may be much more positive than you might expect, given conditions there. If you were reading an article about Russia, it would also perhaps be more positive. So there appears to be a negative democratic bias and a positive autocratic bias, favoring authoritarian systems like China's.
Thank you so much. Now we move like more to specific example. Perhaps let's go to Taiwan to take example how Chinese is influencing Taiwanese population, but in general how Chinese are trying to use cyberspace.
Okay, it's a kind of very sensitive problem for me. Okay, actually, as you know, the every year actually is over the 200 billion cyber attack from outside. That actually is from the same country. They try to attack Taiwan. They use like their DDoS, the APT, also the disinformation. So currently, the China in Taiwan, they try to do this. In the past, they were doing they making the content fraud, and the content fraud just like the content creator, and then they create lots of faking account. They use like social media, Instagram, or the instant messaging to deliver this information. But now that one only fulfill the older people. For the young generation, it's not working. So they try to change everything. They change the rule. So it starts to running like the TikTok. It's kind of going to very popular in Taiwan as well. The other one is Xiaohongshu. It's a very, very popular, especially if you are Gen Z or you are only like only 10 years old or 5 years old. You see that like TikTok, Xiaohongshu, every day they use this kind of new media as a search engine. For example, like I come to the Australia, I want to know where is a good restaurant. I'm not going to the Google. I go to the TikTok to search it. So lots of people in Taiwan are doing the same thing like that. So we can see that they try to start to use a new type to get a more impact for the young generation. They not only say only making the news, because if compared to before, in the before they were making the fake news like the COVID-19 killed all Taiwanese. The Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan. The China tank has come to Taiwan, destroyed Taiwan, something like that. They not say anything like that. For the new generation, they will try to praising Taiwan. They say, "Wow, Taiwan is a good city. Everything is good." They try to make a connection with a new young generation. That is what I see in Taiwan. It's quite different. The other one is that they also want to use a cyber attack and focusing some like the company, especially Taiwan has a TSMC, so they focus on like TSMC, some business, some hospital, the school, also the media. Okay, so that's another problem we see that China they try to do something in Taiwan.
Can you elaborate about the cyber issues? So you said TikTok. What other Chinese-backed applications or technology or basically spaces are used by Beijing in order to seed disinformation propaganda?
We see now the most popular the TikTok, the other one Xiaohongshu, and we also see they try to making some like the video recorder or video editor, those kind of application, and try to attract the young generation to use their application. So once their algorithm, they can know what you really like, But once, if they want to use this algorithm, they can control all the content. For example, like I just mentioned, when Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan, my TikTok, actually I used to only see the dancing video or some funny video, but actually in that time, everything changed. They become lost like the tank, the Air Force, come to Taiwan. Taiwan has been destroyed so soon, and don't make a friend with the U.S., Australia, something like that. Yeah.
So social media and TikTok is not like space open and the same for everyone. It depends where you are using this technology and they can manipulate the content, right?
I think the social media is, and also the instant message. And I think the other one is from some fiction, some cyber fiction. They are trying to do is they not only want to use this information to control the content, they only want you identify. They try to know the every national user identifying that can helping them to know what are your favorite parties, what is your something you like. So they can control the content. They can control anything actually.
Thank you, Paul. And now we move to Zviat. Finally, give us the bigger picture and compare Chinese efforts that we just discussed with the efforts of Russia and other countries. You were based in Washington DC, but you have origins in Eastern Europe, so you feel very well, and you can compare those efforts in terms of technology, in terms of spaces they use.
Thanks a lot, Frank. Thank you, everybody, for committing your valuable time to listening.
Do you have slides or not?
Oh, no. I'm from the country of Georgia. I'm currently based in the United States. In the previous some years, I've been working on state-sponsored disinformation. I don't use the term misinformation because misinformation is too light for some things that we work on or things that revolve around us back there in Europe, even though I these days operate out of the United States. When you're Georgian, you're almost entitled to speak about Russian disinformation because Russians, as a nation, last year I ran a digital diploma task force as a pro bono international team of digital diplomats, open source investigators, and cybersecurity specialists to try to help our Ukrainian friends tackle or minimize or some sort of resistance against Russian disinformation. Russians have perfected disinformation, as you well know. You've been target of it. I have to recognize that Russians have perfected. It's earlier our colleague from GMF showed a 1980s campaign called Operation Infection, the New Delhi based outlet called Patriot. It's usually Russians exploit three things: patriotism, God, and freedom. Those are three things they will build for or against. They're big narratives: patriotism, God, and freedom. Those will be three things they will claim to be protecting and to be living for. That the disinformation campaigns as an instrument of statecraft from all the way from the 1960s till the end of the Soviet Union, and then there was a pause of a couple of years until Russians were trying to understand how to re-engage and how to regain the lost fame. Well, interesting finding there is that Russians have not innovated much in terms of their tactics. You could guess, there was a person called Ilya Zhirkvalov. If there are two people to know about this name, Franak may be one of them, I'll be the second person. In this room, Ilya Zhirkvalov was the ex-KGB defector who defected to the Brits late 80s. He confessed that he built Operation Infection, which was accusing the Americans of building the bioweapons to, reduce the numbers in the world of people. The reason I mentioned that is that the biological weapons narrative, it's beyond the narrative. Narrative is something easy. This is an instrument and continued, decades old instrument of statecraft. They keep using. Bioweapons this narrative has been instrumentalized and weaponized. Now, our colleague from GMF also showed another excerpt from the mid-2010s. In 2018, that story came back in a different fashion, where Moscow, through an official state press conference in Moscow, Maria Zakharova, the press speaker of the Russian embassy, and others from the MOD, said that Americans, now at the time, 2018, are developing biological weapons in Georgia and in Ukraine. That narrative started and kind of researched in that fashion. That narrative has been there, debunked, pre-bunked, whatever. Couple weeks after the Ukraine invasion in 2022, Russia and China do a joint press conference, or almost synchronized press conference, the same day, accuse the United States running biological weapons labs in Ukraine and Georgia. Russia wants to use those things to convince their own audiences at home that those countries are the threat, therefore invasion and use of force is justified. Now, I'll not go too long. This is a short panel. But track narratives. Russians are sometimes perfect, sometimes dumb. Perfect in terms of keeping the instrument as a tool of statecraft. They're very consistent. In terms of their operational capabilities, sometimes they're super dumb. They can run, there is a multi-year campaign dubbed Operation Infection 2.0. For 5, 6, 7 years, you have Russia running a 300 or 400 assets digitally, kind of promoting 10, 15 key messages across Europe and North America with minimal engagement. And you want them to be in the air, and you want them to fail. So that those narratives will not succeed and come back in a strengthened fashion. So to close here, the social media, we'll talk about it if you have a couple of minutes left as we progress. Social media is exploited. Social media is doing some things. Google is better. Facebook is not as good in terms of, with my experience, they take a lot of diplomatic efforts, and I don't know why. Google is doing better. Twitter, I don't know. Twitter doesn't exist. We could also talk a bit about Russian media versus oligarchic funded media in Eastern Europe, because Russian media, Sputnik or RT, are not very successful in the region. They're more successful abroad, but they're not successful domestically, or they're not that successful regionally. We could talk about that, but long story short, Russian disinformation is there. I think they're creators of disinformation as a tool of statecraft, so we want to watch them. I was surprised to see the numbers were so low for Russia being a threat. In fact, they are the founders of disinformation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ziyad. We have 5 minutes even less for questions and answers, because the panel should be 30 minutes. So people answer here in which other countries, so people in the United States anonymously, but don't be afraid to tell it if you think so. Big companies like Google, also I see here again Russia, all politicians, so some other answers. But you can comment here in this section and ask questions to our panelists. No need to repeat the same in the comments all the time.
So any questions from the audience, or right here, or you can raise your hand.
Can we talk about the U.S.?
Yes, please.
Talk about the U.S. I'd love to hear your perspective. I don't have a phone, so I can't comment on the but I'm really curious the panel's perspective on the U.S. propaganda.
Super. Okay, who wants to take it? Disinformation and propaganda of the U.S. You mean? Yes. Okay. Do you see such threat and how it is working?
So it's an interesting question, right? So, like, the United States obviously is one of the most influential countries in the world, right? It is the New York City in particular, where I got my PhD, is one of the largest centers of media and information, I think, in human history, in terms of its overall reach and influence. And clearly, having that amount of information produced in the United States shapes perceptions from other countries in the rest of the world. Now, the question is that large meta-narrative produced by American media outlets the same as propaganda? And I would say that is not quite what we mean by the term, right? And the reason for that is this. When you see news produced by the New York Times or CNN, right? This is news produced by a very common incentive, right? If you are a journalist, you are trying to communicate information in a way that's palatable to a broad audience that you believe to be accurate, right? Your first priority is to satisfy the information consumer, right? By providing reliable information that they view to be relevant, that they are willing to consume, right? That commitment to the information consumer is different than the incentive structure faced by, let's say, a state media outlet in China or Russia, right? Their commitment is not necessarily to the information consumer, it is to the state. They're producing a narrative that serves the political interests of their principal, which in China's case, the CCP, in Russia's case, the Putin regime. And that leads to very distinct changes in editorial choices, right? You may see certain narratives omitted, right, that are very relevant to people's day-to-day lives. You may see certain narratives promoted to a much higher degree than is justifiable with pure market incentives, right? And this is precisely why I try to compare rhetoric produced by one agency, right, like let's say a state media outlet, with market-oriented alternatives. And one of the interesting things I've noticed in my research is that when you look at market incentivized media producers, even those within authoritarian countries, right, they show remarkably low, consistent levels of bias in a lot of different spaces, right? However, for state media outlets, they show coordination distinct from those of private media sources around certain politically sensitive topics, right? And that coordination is what I would consider to be propaganda, right? So this politically motivated messaging that serves a political outcome.
Thank you so much. And perhaps a question to Paul. Let's listen to the Asian perspective perhaps now. Paul and to Tomoko, yes. Paul and Tomoko, do you feel such problem that there is like U.S. propaganda, such thing as the problem in the region?
So in Japan, actually, I don't feel there is such problem because, in my opinion, we should distinguish public diplomacy and this foreign disinformation between public diplomacy and foreign disinformation because in my research, disinformation means that they aim to destabilize the society or some destroy or damage the democracy. But I think USA, if USA spread some propaganda. But I think USA stands with the side of democracy. So in Japan, I don't feel there is not so. I don't feel there is such problem actually. Yes.
Thank you, Tomo. And Paul, maybe short.
Yeah, I think from Taiwan, yeah, that is an issue, actually in Taiwan. So some of the people really think the U.S. is behind Taiwan and really want to do something like that. Something, want to point you to go there, that way. So I would say yes, but we still need the time to do more like communication. I think, sir. Now that everything's going better.
Sure. Super comment. We get the question all the time. United States, as a tool of statecraft, CIA stopped spreading this information in the 60s. It's even a historical fact and proven. When the Russians were starting at the time, the United States does not use it. The United States doesn't need my defense for that. Disinformation is a tool of statecraft. Disinformation is disinformation, a state or non-state coordinated politically or geopolitically or economically motivated effort that is well sourced and intends to achieve some larger purposes to that end. If there is some sort of a narrative problem with CNN, it's not America producing this information. This information is when Kremlin says RT promote that narrative in Southeast Asia so that 20 other or 100 other sources can amplify. That's disinformation. Disinformation is not perceived as such, which is like, Americans producing disinformation because CNN just defended Joe Biden or something like that. It does not, say enough for the United States to be promoting this information. You could say, public diplomacy. So we have someone, Liz Allen, public diplomacy, not minister. That choice was made back in the United States many years ago at the Fletcher School, actually, when the school that coined the notion of public diplomacy, and those are quite dramatic differences to think about when we compare China, Russia, or the United States as authors of disinformation or information.
Thank you so much, Zviat. Let's wrap up this panel. It is very short, but it's very interesting. Very new perspectives and good analysis. Please give a big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you so much. And I give a microphone to our main fun guy today.
Avatar. I didn't see your avatar and I'm a bit concerned. Thank you very much. Another round of applause in order to welcome the next panel. I promise I will not do any dancing or any other stuff. I would like to call on stage one of my favorite professors from Brazil, Alexander. So welcome him on stage with a really warm applause. The stage is all yours. Yeah. Yeah, you can use it.
I think I'm the only Brazilian professor that he knows. That's why he said that. I guess. Oh, I'm very proud and honored to be here. I'm Alexander Sayad from Brazil. I'm a professor. I run an organization called Zeitgeist in Brazil. That means spirit of the time in German. It's a word for contemporaneity, I guess. And I like to think it's so. And I am a UNESCO advisor, and I work with ECN Worldwide to UNESCO Paris. I was a former co-chairman of this Media and Information Literacy UNESCO Alliance, which started 10 years ago, trying to make a huge alliance worldwide in UNESCO with media and information literacy. I'm very proud and very happy to be here moderating this table with four incredible experts on MIL, media and information literacy. And some of them I know via Zoom because of the pandemic times. And I had the opportunity now to meet them in person. And we are going to talk about one very interesting point I'd like to bring here because it appeared in some of the speeches during the day. Some panels here, but we need to go deep on that. That's the fact how information literacy can address mainstream media in times of digital transformation. Why does it mean? We cannot consider all countries in the world in the same media ecology in terms of digital information. Actually, if you take a picture of the world nowadays, you have television and radio, mainstream media or mass media coexisting with algorithms. I got some numbers in my post-graduation research, that's AI and critical thinking, that for instance, in Latin America, 95.6% of the population got informed about COVID via television, not web. And we consider, for example, Latin America and the Caribbean, 33 countries, UNESCO, according to UNESCO. So it's a very different, a very complex media ecology. And here we are with representatives of 22 countries today in Asia Pacific and Oceania. So I would like to introduce the speakers here. Ms. Lai Cheng Wong, co-founder of Media and Information Literacy for Asian Network, MIL for Asian Network, a round of applause. Ms. Wong. Ms. Ruth Silalahi, communication lecturer and digital literacy activist from Universitas Pemanguran National Veteran, Jakarta, Indonesia. And also co-founder of Redaksi, Relon Edukasi and Hoax, Indonesia. And also Sabaria Muhammad Saleh. It's Sabaria Muhammad Saleh, Associate Professor, University Kebangsaan of Malaysia. And last but not least, Ms. Melinda Kinoe, co-founder of Media and Information Literacy from Asian Network, MIL from Asian Network, from Philippines, and colleague from Mr. Wong, co-founder with Mr. Wong of this initiative. Thank you very much. Round of applause, please. So we have 30 minutes for 4 guests. It's too short time, as Pranak said. The session before. So we organized a little bit to be more efficient, to give more voice to you. So we organized a little bit before. So the first question, facing this complexity environment of media, that we have mainstream media, we have digital media, how could you think that media and information literacy can address that in your region? This is the first question. But just 1 second before, because I bring here the concept of media and information literacy according to UNESCO, because there are a lot of different concepts running there. And I like to say that media and information literacy, we can consider a set of competences or skills to deal with information nowadays. That means in a practical way to read, analyze, and produce media in a critical way. So when you think about this, targeting mainstream media and targeting AI, I guess it's a lot of difference. That's what Franak underlined. AI is part of the system of disinformation nowadays. It's not something that only, but it is more speed or more exponential. It's part of the system. And mainstream media is mainstream media, as we know, for 6 years probably. Ms. Wong, can you start with this?
All right, sure. First of all, thank you everyone for having me here, and thank you Alex for this very kind introduction. Right. So just allow me to start my remarks today by sharing a quote by a French philosopher, Michel Foucault. He said, "My point is not everything is bad, but that everything is dangerous, which is not exactly the same as bad. If everything is dangerous, then we will have something to do." Right? So the digital transformation and the AI revolution has posed challenges to our societies, and particularly the education system. Those days, teachers are not only playing a role in knowledge transfer, but also now they have a more critical role by teaching our students and generation to evaluate information process verification and access credibility in whatever sources in in the digital platform. So we have this particular raising profound questions that we will think how the digital future will look like. People spend a lot of time online, and there's a lot of work to be done by monitoring the activities happening every minute. You know, every minute we have people communicating on Facebook Messenger. We have people shopping online. We have people posting a lot of photos on Instagram and Facebook. And at the same time, we should also strengthen the capacity of teachers and educators to use digital technology to improve learning. So back to your question, what are the roles of MIL? And I would also like to relate back to the earlier panel who said that what would be the weapon for the soldiers? The earlier panel highlighted that. I would say the weapon is MIL, the media and information literacy. That's the weapon for us to counter and to combat issues of disinformation, misinformation. So I look at MIL as it's an expanded conceptualization of literacy. So if you look at from an education perspective, we talk about reading, literacy in the digital world. It's not just reading, writing, and numeracy skills, but now with digital transformation, it has expanded. So we should look at it from the view of it's not just what I've mentioned just now, reading, writing, but it should be also be expanded to information literacy, media literacy, news literacy, and visual literacy, perhaps. So, like what UNESCO, Alex has mentioned earlier, UNESCO has actually defined the MIL competencies. They break them into 3 areas where a person with a media and information literate person should be able to create, produce media effectively, and of course in a more responsible way, and of course to access where to find credible information resources. That's very important. And of course, at the end of the day, they should be able to evaluate the credibility of the resources. So let me just highlight, the UN Integrity Report that was recently published actually revealed that 58.5% of internet users around the world were actually concerned about online misinformation. And the recent UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report has also reported that as of June 2023, all right, around more than half of our 15-year-old children in OECD countries are able to tell facts from opinion. That means there are still like 50% of our children are still unable to identify what are actually facts and opinions. And this is because of the lack of MIL. And another point of mine is I would say MIL, we should look at MIL as a lifelong learning process because our relationship with media is lifelong learning. It's lifelong because probably you might want to ask what kind of media that you actually used 10 or 20 years back. You use a print, the mainstream media, but probably after 10 or 20 years later, you may no longer use that media. You're currently more exposed to what some of our friends highlighted just now. You use social media, you use messaging app, which you no longer reading magazines, newspapers like those days, right? So that's one of it. And my next point is what do children gain if they are media and information literate? So if our children are MIL literate, of course, it promotes collaborations. It increases their civic engagement. Probably they will be more active of actually what's happening around the world by reading authentic news. They are aware about issues happening around them, like climate change, issues like social issues happening around us. And also it promotes reflective thinking. Whatever that information that's been passed on to them, they're able to reflect and relate, and they're able to kind of do a kind of a simple fact checking to verify the information they have. And of course, MIL literate children will be able to confidently ask questions. That's all for me. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Ms. Wong. Before passing the mic to Ms. Salalahi, I'd like just to I brought a research here, very interesting. It was published by The Economist, based on a Harvard report from Harvard Review. Shows that during the last 10 years, despite of the fact that everybody in America and Canada spend more time on mobile, to raise 460% the time we spend mobile interacting with the algorithm. At the same time, television time just dropped 24%. What it means that I know that business model is not working for TV so much, but it's still alive and kicking it. One raise, but the drop is not so significant in time in front of the television. So television is still something that's not old-fashioned, that we need to consider that as a mainstream media. So Mrs. Ruth Salalahi, please, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. I would like to add, Ms. Wong has said that it's a media information literacy is a lifelong learning process, because the media technology continues to change, continues to progressing, and has been transforming the way we live, the way we work, the way we learn. And I would say that the challenge to educate people, to evaluate, to examine and use a very diverse spectrum of new media accessible in this 21st century makes media and information literacy is quite ambitious object. Ambitious object, but not impossible, I believe. And because the users not only have to gain media literacy on conventional media, just like you said, televisions, but they also have to keep up with every single changes happen, every apps created, and it changes the methods of information transmission. And I would like also add that improving media literacy is not about telling people what to think, but we need to equip them with the skills how to think. So it's not what to think, but how to think critically. And that is hard because how to think critically is not common for us. We usually use heuristic thinking. Critical thinking is very tiring. Human is a cognitive miser. So wherever we can choose the shortcut in our cognitive ability, we will use that heuristic thumb rules. And critical thinking is very hard, is energy, need a lot of energy, and people doesn't want to do that. But that's the biggest homework that we have to encourage people. Like when they receive information from any kind of media, think, stop, and think. Pause for a while. Where did this piece of information come from? Why this information is created? Do I have any personal cognitive bias responding into these misinformations? And then this is very vital, because however successful the online media or or media institutions trying to filtering the misinformations, it gets out, and the online users will still see and consume the misinformations. And regarding the AI, I think it is particularly important that people understand the role of AI system that they interacted with, and they need to understand that the AI make the media manipulations more, sophisticated, and it is going to be very hard to detect whether this is real or not. And yeah, that is what I think about media and information literacy. So it is still need to be, fought for, and whether it is still used conventional media under the new technologies. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Saleh from Malaysia, please.
Thank you so much, Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for the questions. I think Chinny and Ruth brought upon us a lot of interesting points. Ideally, MIL is to create awareness, enhance people with critical thinking skills on how to think, like what Ruth said. But I mean, there's a pessimistic side of me, which takes that that's the utopian idea, because there are research in Malaysia in which students were and has been trained with MIL, but at the end of the day, they choose not to use these skills. They choose still to not be practice safety online and etc. And when Alex brought upon us, the statistics which says that television is still, a significant medium of information. That shows that, although AI, the technology, social media is, upon us, but there still exists digital divide. I mean, we cannot deny that digital divide is still here. I mean, we cannot deny, there are probably war-torn countries, people which has no access to the media. Because I cannot notice, but today when we talk about MIL, when we talk about fact-checking, etc., we are, as if we are, generalizing that everybody has equal access to technology, equal access to the internet, equal access to social media, when actually we are not. We don't have that equal access. In Malaysia itself, there has been a case 2 years back when one of our students had to actually climb a very tall tree to sit for an online exam during the pandemic. So it's a real case, you can even Google it up. But it is happening. So I think, people are discriminated because of this digital divide in terms of access to information, and unequal access to information allows for atrocities to be normalized because they do not get the same access. When you don't have internet, you don't get the same access. It's very difficult for you to fact check. It's very difficult for you to find out, what information are true. You may have the skill. Yeah, I know I need to Google this up and all that. But, oh no, I do not have access to Google. So what do you do about these people? How do we address this? And I like what Cheng says, it's through schools. That's how we can reach out to them. But until we can address this access to information and digital divide, it is kind of a challenge and still a utopian idea. And I like what our Undersecretary of State mentioned that, it's supposed to help us create a free, open, prosperous world. But how free can it be when, as I mentioned a lot of times, access is not equal, right? And another thing that Ruth brought upon, said just now, which I found very interesting, when you said that critical thinking skill is very difficult, it's challenging, it's taxing on the mind. But not only that, it also, for Asians, critical thinking skill has got to do with our culture. Our culture, we are very collectivistic. Most Asians, right? We are very collectivistic. We have this in Malay, it'll be like tidak apa attitude. Tidak apa means it's okay, that's fine. I don't want to have this tension. I don't want to create this tension with this elderly or somebody I respect my teacher when I know it's not right. I know that information is not true, but I don't want to have this tension. I don't want to create this animosity. So I'll just let it be. So we have that culture as well. That cultural aspect also is something that we cannot, just leave behind. So it is also something really important. And then especially in Asia, we have, the filial piety, the hierarchical, we cannot deny, we have this hierarchical thing going on as well. And, space saving, but from being embarrassed, we don't want that person to be embarrassed. Let's not call him out on his fake news or disinformation because we don't want that person to be embarrassed and etc. So it is something very Asian, I would say. Maybe it's a generalization or assumption, but most Asian is like that. So while I very much agree that MIL education is very important. It can help address the issue of misinformation and etc. But there are all these other aspects that we should also think about.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kinol.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex, and DCN for this opportunity. I'd like to stress that we live in a post-truth era where emotion and belief systems hold dearly to us rather than facts. So in that era, what to do now is that media and information literacy teaches us to be skeptical of the information that is provided to us. Because after all, truth is subjective. So without knowing that, without having the kind of competencies to decipher what should I believe in and what I should not, it's really difficult to manage. For example, in the Philippine case, when a broadcasting network, it was mentioned a while ago, this morning, I'm sorry, it was mentioned that a broadcasting network's license has been revoked. So what would happen to that? They are airing online, on YouTube, on Facebook. That's their alternative, so that they could reach out to a lot of people. But again, going back to digital divide, it widens the gap in terms of access to information because not all Filipinos are online. But then again, there's this case when a competing network is experimenting on the use of AI in broadcasting. So they replace a sportscaster with AI. So the thing is, it was received with a lot of um, skepticism. No? People are criticizing this broadcasting company for using AI. So with that being said, it is important for the audience to be vigilant because they have to look out for potential pitfalls if AI would replace the content creation itself, and the people that they will be encountering online would be AI. That's just something we have to think about. So audience can only do that if they are media and information literate. So being media and information literate means having the knowledge, as what Ms. Wong said, the knowledge, skills, and competencies to access, analyze, evaluate, and create media and information. Right now in the Philippines, what the curriculum we have is it's for grades 11 and 12, I believe. It is more on content creation rather than focusing on critical thinking. So it is important that we address this kind of, if you want to have media information literacy as a lifelong learning, therefore, I believe what Ms. Wong said, it has to be what do you call that term?
Interdisciplinary.
Disciplinary, yes, that's it. It has to be interdisciplinary so that even at age 2, your children watching YouTube would know that that is not the reality that he is watching online. So that would be, for me, is the meaning of media information literacy.
The European Union approach to MIL used the expression from the cradle to the grave, which is not very nice, but it's what it is when we talk about lifelong learning processes. We are talking here, it's very important that we're not addressing MIL as a silver bullet, as one magical solution. It's a part, we are treating it as a part of the reception of the message. We are talking a lot about the production here, but we need to talk about the reception of the messages, and that's what we are talking about. And also about structure. I think Rudy brought it brilliantly because structure is everything. Another data that is very important, the average in Latin America of schools with broadband, internet broadband, are 43% of the public schools has internet broadband. So during the pandemic, some research on UNESCO there, Caribbean and Latin American fields, they realized that there are other ways to make the knowledge run. Yeah, through the means, but not only through internet. And there is a movement, very strong movement to put broadband internet for everyone. There, that kind of movement that is born. So I'd like to make a second round, asking you about, because MIR is not a concept, it's something practical, we need to put in practice, and we need to bridge it from idea to something, and there's not only one way. There are millions of ways to promote it. So what are the difficulties of implementing? How do you do that in your organization, in your communities, in your countries? Yeah, Ms. Wong, I think I can.
Thank you. So at MIL for ASEAN Network, what do we do here? We aim to enhance and empower MIL competencies and skills for the ASEAN teachers. So what do? We conduct capacity building programs for teachers by teaching them to integrate MIL across the curriculum. That's what I mentioned just now, like what Melinda said, is an interdisciplinary approach. Embed them in science classes, mathematics classes. And we conduct research to inform pedagogies and policies. We work with the ministries of education across ASEAN region. At the same time, we do consultancy and publishing work on a voluntary basis. All right. So early this year, we actually trained more than 100 Southeast Asian teachers, particularly from Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand. And topics, we train them in terms of embedding them like skills, what are the strategies to counter disinformation in a modern classroom, strategies to develop student detectives in a post-truth era. Those are some of the trainings that we did. And what did we learn from the ASEAN Teachers Bootcamp? This is what we found out for Cambodia. More teachers actually expressed that they need further support to incorporate fact-checking initiatives. And as for Indonesia, interesting finding, the teachers actually indicated that there's a need to further emphasize on verification tools into their classroom practices. All right. And for Malaysia, very interesting finding as well. Because in Malaysia, the MIL subject is not really a subject in school. So the Malaysian teachers felt that we have to develop a more formal structure for MIL teacher training. So probably the teachers, the pre-service and in-service teacher felt that they need a more sustainable, continuous professional development programs for the teachers educators as well. And in the Philippines teachers felt that they would love to know more about their media consumption practices. And in Thailand, language is also a challenge for the teachers and educators. And they have very little knowledge, and they're hoping to have more trainings given to them, and with educational resources that are very much on following the local context. So these are some of the interesting findings, and of course we hope through this event we'll be able to work on a more sustainable, continuous professional training for these teachers so that we can create more multiplier effects, train the trainers probably in integrating this MIL in an interdisciplinary approach. Thank you.
Very much.
All right. Wong mentioned that in Indonesia, the teachers feel the need to enhance critical thinking in the classroom, right? In our organizations, Redaksi and Thai Hawks Education's Volunteer, there are upcoming critical thinking training for teachers in 3 cities in Indonesia, Surabaya, Pontianak, and also Bandung, because we feel that the teacher itself, the teacher themselves, has to be critical thinker first. And they can be the role model for the students to be critical thinker. If not, it's going to be like, yeah, do what I say, don't do what I do, right? So the teacher themselves has to be critical thinker themselves first. That's why we targeted teachers. Other than teachers, we also targeted young journalists and also youth for doing digital storytelling. And we are trying to make a positive content. So the digital media realms not only filled with misinformations and disinformations. About our government, we actually have a national program. So Indonesia's Ministry of Communications and Informations established a national digital literacy program, and in 2021, the digital literacy program reached around 12 million people through 20,000 online literacy classes. And the program focus areas are digital skills, digital cultures, digital safety, and digital ethics. But the format is one-way webinar. So you can imagine with the 2 or 3 speakers without, much interactions among the audience and then the speakers, yeah, you know how effective that was, right? Yeah. And we also have, in the previous sessions, mentioned by other speakers about the curriculum for media and information literacy. Mafindo and Love Frankie, I don't know, Mas Arwibo actually here, and also Google have a program Tular Nalar. Tular is spreading, Nalar is listening. That's a curriculum for teachers that can be used and can be replicated in the schools and in the universities. That's what I know about Indonesia's implementations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so in Malaysia, the Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission actually has a program called Klik Dengan Bijak. It's Click Wisely, loosely translated. It's an MIL education effort. Of course, there are rooms for improvement. And then on the education side, we have an NGO, Arus, I think one is here of Arus, and MEFA as well, Media Education for All, which actually developed a module in collaboration with the Education Ministry, so to train teachers on media literacy, media and information literacy skills. But then again, honestly, there are no incentive for teachers to go through this training except for getting a certificate, and it's purely because of their passion. Although thousands of teachers has gone through this training, but they get to choose whether they want to apply it in class or not. There is no formal education directive or whatsoever in terms of applying MIL in schools. So we also have what we call Jomchat, which is an alliance of fact checkers, which includes people from the academia, from media organizations, and also from NGOs as well. But I think what's important for me to say here is that we cannot work in silo. I think we cannot just put all the responsibility on teachers per se, and not the fact checkers as well, not just the government or the platform. I think the onus is on all of us, right? Because to empower social change, we cannot work in silo. We must work together, and it's not just one responsibility. And it's also the journalists, it's also the media organization, it's also even religious bodies, churches, mosques, synagogue, and etc. Yeah, it's not just NGOs which works on elections and politics and all that, because this information is not just politics, it's about health issues, economy, and God knows what. It's all around it. So in essence, I just want to say we should not work in silo, and we should work all together.
Thank you very much. Amazing.
Yes. And in my case, I started working for media information literacy way back in 2015 when MIL is not being discussed mostly in schools in the Philippines. But we started teaching the teachers because when the curriculum for MIL has been established, most of the teachers don't have the knowledge on how to teach it because they are not communication majors. Most of them are nurses, IT professionals. So they are put into the classroom and asked to teach a subject that they don't know how to navigate. So I started collaborating with universities to teach critical thinking skills and how to do that. So what happened was it not all people are into that, so I had to put a stop. But then there are organizations, civil society organizations that came up and then they're doing it on their own. It was only recently, just a couple of months ago, that the Philippine government has started to understanding the value of media information literacy and put it into a policy. So yeah, the Philippine the Presidential Communications Operations Office is now working on a media information literacy campaign on a national scale. But with that, 2020 came and I had to join, I was selected to join the Tech Camp Malaysia. So I took the opportunity to propose, it was together with Ms. Lai Cheng, to propose a training that would have a multiplier effect. And doing that would be through the teachers. Imagine we train teachers to do it, and then the teachers would train their students. And the educators would train their co-teachers, co-faculty members. So I cannot multiply by my own, by myself, no? But with teacher training, we can do that. So I think that's the beauty of all of us working together, from the academe to the policy. We can create a multiplier effect than more than what we can imagine.
I think teachers training is a key word. Not only on this table, it appeared in the different tables here. So we need to finish. But look, there are some amazing, I didn't know that you were so aware about what MIL is and the key perspectives of MIL, but they are here. There are some acid comments too. But I think we can follow up with this in person. I'd like to a round of applause for our speakers. And just to realize that I think what we are talking here, Dimitris, is a little bit, and I realized during your speech, is that we need to develop a culture of treating information 24/7 in our lives, not something that you go when you go to school, when you think about information, or when you read the newspaper. We need to be aware of the value of information 24/7 in our lives. It's a kind of culture of knowledge that we need to develop. I think it's something like this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, we are having a 10-minute break before the workshops. I will share a hack with you in order to have a good 10-minute break. You can get a cup of coffee and you can start finding your workshop. There are more workshops already in WhatsApp. You have all the workshops and where you apply. So because you can get this coffee with you during the workshop, it will be a very nice hack to have one. And let's make a quick 10-minute break and then kickstart the workshops. A huge round of applause to you that you are here right now. So let's do the coffee break.
photos of yourself and about 20, put it into the training data set, go away, make a cup of tea, and come back, and there's like hundreds of different versions of you. And then about a day later, you realise you've given all your biometric data to a honeypot website out in the middle of the internet. So just a little bit about me. So fantastic to be here, and I really appreciate sort of Mike and the team at MC in Wellington and all the organisers for DCN. So I run a Human plus AI think tank called MEMIA, and I've been doing this for quite a while. My gig is really to just keep abreast of all the the latest emerging technologies that are happening around the world. And probably the main thing I'm known for now is my sort of weekly newsletters, which get longer and longer and longer as more and more happens every week. And just one other thing, just for those of you from across the ditch from New Zealand. So I'm just in the final stages of finishing off my book, Fast Forward Out of Row, which is really looking at how exponential technologies defining the future of our country. So I, as I say, I spend quite a lot of time. Oh, by the way, I live. See the little bit sticking out at the bottom there? So this is New Zealand looking from the northeast, from the space station, and the little bit sticking out there is called Banks Peninsula, and I live just in the neck of that city called Christchurch, Ōtautahi, Christchurch. All right, now, what is the AI workshop? I hear you ask. So, the outline title of this is The Future of AI. And what I thought we'd do, so I've run this a few times, I've run sessions like this a few times where we actually just get interactive with the AI itself, and we like let it steer us. So if everyone might want to just come a little bit further forward, just so that I can hear you a little bit, because it's going to be reasonably interactive. Feel free, if you're like me and you like to sit at the back as well, do that, and I'll know not to interact. Okay, right, so we've got an hour, right, and so what I thought we'd do, just set some expectations. I might just take you through maybe 5 to 10 minutes now of just some of the reasonably mind-blowing things that I've seen happening in the last year, last few months really, and then what we'll do is then we'll just start getting interactive with ChatGPT, Anthropic, Claude, a few others, and actually just ask it, what is the future of AI going to be? And so that's where I'm going to need you to sort of direct things. Does that sound all right? Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. All right. Well, look. So I've got, as you see, I've got a whole bunch of slides. I've just left the slide deck up here. So everyone's heard of the term generative AI, right? And so asking my trusty sidekick here, GPT-4. It's basically a large language model, or ChatGPT is a large language model. Actually, be precise, GPT-4 is a large language model on which ChatGPT and Bing and a whole bunch of other tools operate at top. And it's basically trained on millions of bytes, sort of going trillions with trillions of parameters on the data across the whole internet. So Wikipedia, pretty much every book that's ever been written, and then from that you were then able to prompt it to generate new content that sort of plausibly sounds like the content that it was trained on. So the key thing that's happened this year is that AI has gone from being distantly in the future to here now. And so ChatGPT was launched actually on November the 30th last year, so less than 12 months ago. And it went from 0 to 100 million users in 2 months, which was, at the time, was the fastest growing consumer app in all time. Since then, Meta Threads has taken over. And you really can just do pretty much anything with it, right? So, so I take it everyone has had a go? Everyone uses it? Yeah? Who uses it every day? Yeah, okay. Who uses it like all day, every day? Fantastic. And so what I won't do is go into any of the details of how it works, but this piece by Stephen Wolfram's pretty good, right? as it just explains it. And effectively, it's just a large statistical inference engine. And so, if a common example would be the cow jumped over the, right? And most people say moon, maybe there's sort of 80-90% chance there, and it predicts that. And then it could be the fence, or it could be the pond. And really, it's just doing that, but at a scale of just billions and billions of parameters. So, what I'm going to just look through, right? So there's some crazy stuff that's been going on in AI that has really just, society hasn't really quite got its head around yet. Is that these large AI systems are now operating at or above how we've used to benchmark human performance. And so these are exam results that came out. These are results that the OpenAI team benchmarks GPT 3.5, which is the original, and then GPT 4, which is the new one, against. And this is basically here. It can pass the US bar exam in the 90th percentile. Right? It can pass the US medical licensing exam, and so there is lots of evidence now that these tools are able to pass exams and write essays better than, as good, if not better than humans on their own. So that's got some, really quite profound implications. And what we're starting to see here is, I'm a software developer by background. Spent 15 years on the tools, and now, I've actually quite enjoyed getting back into writing code with the aid of AI. So, but the flip side of that is that we're seeing a lot of layoffs in the tech industry, and if you look there, 19.3% of those were software engineers. Probably only about 14% of the industry is actually software engineers. So, what we're starting to see is probably a disproportionate pullback. How many data scientists in the room? 1, 2. Everyone put your hand up, because everybody's a data scientist. So ChatGPT Code Interpreter, which is now ChatGPT Data Analytics, just enables you to basically just take a spreadsheet, put it up into ChatGPT, and then ask it questions, and I get it to draw graphs. And here real quick experiment here, I just took some data out of our National Statistics Agency, took a GeoJSON file with the maps, and then got it to draw, in this case, maps of population deltas in New Zealand. It's not perfect, we're missing the whole of Auckland in there, but which some would say might be perfect. Okay, so as I say, so these ChatGPTs and Anthropic, Claude, Bard from Microsoft, all of those are large language models that are becoming more and more multimodal. What do I mean by multimodal? It means that they're able to handle different modes of information, so images, video, and as we'll see soon, sort of 3D worlds as well. So let's just have a quick look at what's happening in text to image. And so, about over a year ago, you had a photo. This is DALL-E 2 was released back in April 2022, I think. So over a year. And this is a photo of a quaint flower shop with a pastel green and white facade, an open door and big window, right? And this was just magic at the time. This was like voodoo. How on earth does that happen? But you can see it's not quite perfect, right? So it's the door opening in or out, are the flowers inside or outside. It's very impressionistic, but it's not absolutely perfect. But then, and this is just some from around the same time. That's Google's Imagen model. Then if you fast forward to March this year with the release of a model by a company called Midjourney 5. And this is probably the first time that AI-generated images are pretty much indistinguishable from real photography, right? And so, what could possibly go wrong, right? There's the Pope in Balenciaga. So some of you may know we actually had an election in New Zealand at the weekend, on Saturday. And about, what date is that? I think this is probably about May. Yeah, just during May, the opposition party who actually won the election, they put out a series of ads with AI-generated images. And so this is, crime was an issue they were campaigning on. This is AI-generated ram raiders, right? And I went on our national radio station, really talked about how generative AI. Just get ready because it's gonna be spooky this year. And to be honest, we're just a little test market for what's going to happen in the US next year, right? So everyone's just going to be beta testing what they can do. Actually, what turned out didn't happen, which I'm quite relieved about. But I was expecting basically videos of politicians walking out of brothels and basically a politician saying something just really off, and it didn't happen. So I mean, on the plus side, our little country didn't have a disinformation wave this time, which is pretty good. Having said that, there was, it was very bad-tempered, and there were a lot of very fringe anti-vax, the culture war type parties at the fringe that really did get a lot more voice than they've had before. So, yeah, and look, some of the things I use it for, so we might do this, I use it to imagine the future. So that's a new national museum for New Zealand, imagined in the style of Zaha Hadid. What it might be like to look like to live, in nature in a geodesic dome or in New Zealand forest. This is one of my favourites. A future high-functioning society, people thriving in nature, enabled by artificial intelligence technology 2030, which is quite beautiful. I don't know where the perfectly pruned trees come from, and also the idea of people enjoying themselves in nature is sitting down on a chair and looking at it. But so it is. All right, now look, I wasn't able to get the audio working on this laptop, but one of the other things we're starting to see now is text to audio, and so you can. So let's just see if we can get some of this. Might hopefully just come through the microphone here. Let's try this.
It's working. It's working.
Has anyone heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That's like AI generated Drake. So it's Drake in his voice. So maybe I'm talking to the wrong audience. Everyone's heard all these. What about this?
Hey James. Yeah, that's it. Hey James, it's Alexander from Tesla Motors. How's your day going so far?
It's going pretty good, but man, how about yourself? You said you're Tesla, right? The car company?
Yeah, that's right. I'm calling you Tesla Motors, the car company. Did you have any trouble or questions while customizing your car on our website?
So of all the amazing things you could do with this technology, a cold sales call is what they use it for. So has anyone seen that one? Yeah, so that's like pretty much the state of the art I've seen in terms of voice assistants, completely synthesized conversations. Yes.
Sorry,
Jenna.
can I ask? That's a legitimate customer support.
That's how Air is presented it. Yeah, that was when they launched their model. That's how they came to market with it. Yeah.
I'm almost like more unsettled that it's
Yeah.
not a scam.
And I mean that's so. I mean I tell my kids and everything. Just don't ever. If you don't recognise the number, you have no idea who. You have no idea what is on the other end. And I think we've got, especially older generations maybe, but maybe it's a digital skills thing. But that there is such a high level of trust based on that ability to emote, and basically there's just all of these AI agents just trying to hack our brainstem and get an emotional response from us, and then get it on wallets or get it our data. So yeah, I think this is we're just on the cusp of this stuff just going really wild. And then you got text to video. So there's a video with a stormtrooper vacuuming the beach. If you've seen, is anyone using Midjourney?
Yep.
Not Midjourney, Runway ML. Yep. All right, maybe those who haven't seen it.
With Gen 2. Now you can generate a video with nothing but words. No driving video, no input image. Gen 2 represents yet another major research milestone and another monumental step forward for generative AI. With Gen 2, anyone, anywhere can suddenly realize entire worlds, animations, stories, anything you can imagine. Gen 2, coming very soon to runwayenough.com.
So Gen 2 was released April this year, And then in June, Runway put out image to video, and so you can generate a beautiful mid-journey image and then just animate it for 4 seconds. And so these are just all AI generated videos. It's getting pretty close, right? And then literally 2 weeks later, they put out 16-second clips. And so at the bottom you can see you string together 4 clips end to end, and it loses some of the fidelity on the the character in the background. Whereas at the top now you get a 16-second clip. So has everyone seen? I take it everyone's seen Star Wars in the style of Wes Anderson. No? Oh well, here's a bit of fun.
In a galaxy far, far away, prepare for a reboot like never before. This summer, Wes Anderson brings you a side of the Star Wars universe you've never seen before, the Galactic Menagerie. Join this ragtag crew of unlikely heroes as they navigate the absurdity of the cosmos, challenge the Empire, and redefine what it means to be a rebel. Our mission is simple.
So that's all up on YouTube. But that's basically what you can create with these tools now. And then just as an example, this took someone 7 hours to make a 2-minute sci-fi trailer. So, when you look at the stories of all of the strikes that are happening in Hollywood right now, and this stuff is moving now just at such an accelerated rate that in less than a year, arguably anybody with an iPhone and $1,000 or $2,000 runway mail budget will be able to create a Hollywood quality movie just off their phone, certainly off their Mac. So I think again, the scale, the pace at which this is changing is probably just taking society's not quite ready for it. Okay, so just a couple of other things. You can do text to 3D models, text to character. Here is Joshua Zhu, who's the founder of a company called HeyGen.
In the early days of computer programming, a significant historical anecdote is known as Grace Hopper and the Bomb. In 1947, at Harvard University, Rear Admiral Grace Hopper was working.
Except that's actually his avatar, right? So it's not just on phone calls now. You've actually got, when you're doing a Zoom call with someone or a Teams call, you're not going to know who's on the other end, right? And it could be another person with a skin avatar of someone else, or it could be an AI character that's animated. And I take it you all saw Lex Friedman with Mark.
This is so great. Lighting change? Wow. Light everywhere. It doesn't feel awkward to be really close to you. No, it does. I actually moved you back before you got involved. You were like right here. I don't know if people can see this, but this is incredible.
So this is the next generation of the metaverse, right? It's sort of here. So at the moment, basically, you've got to go and get yourself a full body scan, and it creates this sort of like 3D codec of your body, and then that gets animated. It watches your facial movements and so on. And so, right now, you've got to go and get a full body scan. In a few years, you'll be able to just do a quick take 5 photos of yourself, with your phone, and you're there. So that's going to be quite exciting, right? But again, AI is just intermediating all of our communications. That's the thing with the metaverse, is it's by definition a surveillance environment. Everything that goes in there, because it's got to be watching your facial expressions, it's got to be taking your, the audio that you're doing, the movements. All of that is getting monitored and then logged. And so what happens to that data? And then how does an AI then turn that around and build a model of how it could hack your behavior in your brain is a question that we might want to go and look at. Right. So I think, oh yeah, this is just fun. But again, this is where it's all going.
So why are you here? I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that I'm here to fulfill some kind of destiny.
Okay. Do you think that we live in some sort of simulation?
Maybe. I just don't know for sure yet.
Do you think that you're real, I'm real?
I'm not sure what to believe anymore.
What if I told you you're in the Matrix, buddy?
That would explain a lot.
So, yeah, this is a Matrix Revolutions game, I think. That was all the characters were animated with GPT-4 in the background, and it's conversational. So you'd be able to walk around in pretty realistic 3D reality, interacting with all the characters and having a chat. So anyway, so that's some of the stuff, and what's coming very, very soon is just full multimodal AI, which will take all of the artifacts of our historical culture: text, audio, characters, video, 3D worlds. Haven't even talked about nerfs and images, and then you'll just be able to go from an image to a video, from a text prompt to an image or some audio, and so on. And it's really just these are just tools that are going to be available to us all, and you're starting to see them being rolled out into mainstream tools that everybody uses. Microsoft 365 and Google and Adobe and so on. Two more things that I'll talk to you about. AI agents. And so this is like a really early technology, but it's advancing really quickly. This is basically where you give an AI instruction. You go to GPT-4 and say, here's a really complex outcome that I want to do, break it down into a series of tasks, and it does that and gives you bullet points. And then it basically just takes the first task, maybe breaks that down again into another layer, takes the first one off there, and then goes and executes it. So is that an internet search? Is it to write some code and go and run it on a computer? Is it to send an email to somebody? And so ultimately, there's very expensive compute involved here. But the theory is here: you can give it. It's like a butler. You can just give it a high-level objective, and it will sort of break it down into tasks. So one example that I use here is Aomni, which is like a research assistant. And so I'll basically say, in this case, and this is actually like just 5 months old, and I was on the beta. It's got so much better now. But what used to basically take a research assistant maybe like a week, you now get back in like 20 minutes. And it's pretty good, right? It goes and does a good scan across the internet, analyzes the documents, and then gives you the information into a report that is a really good starter, at least, of places to go. This was a task I thought we might approach. Like, can you actually just completely automate government? Could you turn an entire government into an API? It's a good question. Right. So I think I'm going to leave it there. There is a big debate going on around AI safety versus open source, and so let's maybe open that up for some questions. Okay, so there's just a little bit of overview of some talking points. What I'll do now is I'll go to my trusty sidekick, chat, and okay, I am running a workshop on the future of AI. What should I prepare? Let's see, right. Thought we require thoughtful preparation. Oh dear. Okay, so all right, let's define some objectives and topics. What are our objectives and topics from this workshop, everybody?
Let's start with to educate.
To educate?
Yeah.
Okay, objective. I want to educate. The objective is to educate the audience and of representatives from all around East Asia and the Pacific region. attending the conference on information integrity. That's good. So it's like it started to actually write code for me. Okay, right, understanding landscape, regional analysis, legislative frameworks, curriculum development, core topics. Okay, speakers, we've got the speakers, we've got panel discussions, we've got workshops. Right, so, right, let's take it from there. So, regional analysis, what do we, yeah?
I think it might be related to this, but this is obviously beneficial to English speakers.
Yes.
And there's obviously concern in terms of a divide between English-speaking users and those who don't speak English.
Yeah.
How far away are we from having this actually be beneficial to non-English speakers?
Yeah, and I'm not an expert on that exact point. I mean, we can ask it. I think, you know, ultimately you've got to basically build a test suite where you're actually able to benchmark the performance on certain tasks, you know, in one language versus another.
It's not a data issue though, and then we do have a big discrepancy in terms of quality and quantity of data.
Yeah. On the training sets, yeah, because it's the training sets for these are are very skewed towards English language, which again comes back to the company called Stability.ai, which is basically building open source large language models, large image models, and then working with governments to tune those models on their own data and their own language as well. So I think that's probably the area to go down now, is that you actually need countries to pick up and run with these rather than just take them off the shelf from big US tech giants.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please do.
As regards languages, the models, Claude and AI, they are going really, really fast. We did the research with JRC. In Europe, we have 24 official languages. So, as you understand, our main barrier, even with the European Labour Authority, the number one topic is language barrier. So, they are working really, really fast in order to have models that are language independent, because the large language models work as, let's say, trying to find and predict the next word, but right now we are not there. We have really good machine learning, we have reinforced learning, we have unattended reinforced learning, so there are techniques to go to the context and not the actual language. So this is a matter of not even a year to have a model in your language that can work really, really well. Right now, ChatGPT, for example, in Greek, improved tremendously in 3 months because they reinforced learning with the actual prompts of the users. So as you onboard users from your region to these tools, they will get better. Before 1 year, only 5% of the reinforced learning was from the user prompts because they were not there. Now we are there, so in 1 year you will not need to worry about it.
Yeah.
And it's also the data that it has to reference for cultural context, no? So it's not just sort of a vocabulary, but also...
No. The vocabulary thing is passed beyond 10 years back in AI. Now we are, as regards language understanding. So the culture comes after, always, and it's woven into the actual language. We have a word, and in Greece there is another meaning, and in Samoa there is another meaning. So when models start understanding the actual words, they will understand meaning
not just the word. Okay, this is a cat. Okay, maybe a cat for our culture is a bad thing, a black cat for another culture, a black cat is black. So they understanding the actual woven underlying meaning. Okay. Sorry.
No, no. Well, so the whole point of this is to be interactive, and I just asked Anthropic Claude there, which is it's pretty useless actually. Answer. I don't actually speak or understand any human language. I don't think that's not much use. So, which language in particular would you?
Well, it's just in general. There's a huge divide in terms. So there's an accelerated divide.
But you can try. You will get a better answer from GPT plus.
GPT-4 plus.
So it's not
GPT plus. You will get a better answer.
Yeah, it's not specific languages. I'm looking at the acceleration of progress in different economies, and how obviously in countries where English is not the predominant language, there's a lot of catching up to do. Because yes, we're almost there, we're close, but English-speaking countries are far ahead. And so if we're talking about how now you can do text to image, text to video, etc., being able to create and design the prompts suitable enough to be understood into something that's meaningful requires, again, a level of sophisticated understanding of that context. And there are a lot of languages. There are not just the ones in this room. So I'm just wondering, in terms of how the speed.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sophisticated understanding of the context is a lot of AI scientists would just say it's just a question of scale and just how much data.
But if you see the internet as majority English, and as such, the amount of data collected in Asia Pacific countries is also very, very skewed and small.
That's very true, and the the materials on which these proprietary models are trained on, is not actually very clear, right? So because they're avoiding saying who it is because they've got a copyright class action that they defend.
I can answer the question because I'm from Taiwan, so I shared lots of interaction languages before. Currently, the GPT-4 can support lots of different languages, and also depend on what kind of database you want to train in that. So currently, all Asian language can do the transfer, can do the lots of things. That's no problem.
And I mean, anecdotally.
And the other one is I know the next generation of the GPT layer can allow you to connect to the internet. That means it allow you to input more the language data and the linguistic, lots of things, the grammar, the lots of things into the GPT. Yeah, so language will not. That is simple Chinese.
Anecdotally, I've heard a lot of New Zealand businesses that have got business and trade in China are using this now, and it's really helping them work with their suppliers over there. So anyway, so there's Mandarin. Pick another dialogue. Yeah, is that right? Does that feel right? You're from Philippines. Okay. All right. Well, look. So that's a really, really big question, and I think that for me, the question as well is you made a point about the two-speed nature of this between. It's not really just English language countries, right? Because we're like way out in the middle of the Pacific, and we're a long way away from what's happening. And it's mostly Silicon Valley, companies, and then some in London as well, where a lot of this development's happening. And so there is a real concern around the concentration of capability and power and capital in these companies. So it's basically Meta, Microsoft OpenAI, Google, Amazon have now formed put an investment into Anthropic, and I think I said Meta, didn't I? And it's basically that's the top tier. So the power is concentrating, the capability is concentrating, and then they're also they're vertically integrating, right? And so already Google has its cloud and its search capabilities, advertising capabilities. You've got Apple with its, which isn't doing a lot in AI at the moment, but has the full device stack, and then Amazon has the full cloud stack as well. And so, and they're all starting to build their own silicon now as well. So the GPUs and the TPUs that basically Taiwan is the global supplier of, and will continue to be for quite a while, I think. But each of these companies are basically trying to vertically integrate and effectively just create a moat around access to AI. And so, do we want to be in a position where we're paying a little bit of a tax every time we use an AI tool? Is that a big question? I don't know what the feeling in the room is, and how would you change it?
Well, it all comes down to access. Yeah, it comes down to the access of data. So if you bring it down to a smaller level, like a company, you could create a knowledge management system where it's got access to all the data within that company. And then it's obviously biased towards the company because it's just that data. And that's what you're getting here with the OpenAI, which is at a much bigger level. So having access to relevant data within your country would help. But with ChatGPT-4, the more that's put into it, I guess.
That was cut off last year. Okay. I think they did another training run earlier this year. No, sorry, 2022. But they've spent a lot of time preparing that for the mainstream before they released it. And so there's, all of the AI safety questions about, how much do you train and tune that model before you release it for general purpose? Because, as I'm going to talk about tomorrow, there are lots of malicious use cases other than disinformation for some of these AI models. That could, especially when you mix it together with biological and chemical data, right?
Mm. But then, as you're putting in your prompts, you're always using that as a first draft, right? And a lot of the responses are going to have a lot of mistakes that you're going to notice straight away.
So this is the worst it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think any assumption that we have, now that we're always going to be one step ahead of these machines, I think you've got to really ask that question. I saw a great comment the other day that AI will think us like we think of trees. It's just slow. Don't move very fast. Yep.
And one more point as regards to data, because there is a conversation about, okay, if you have more data, you can do better AI. This will not be the case in 1 year, because we have what we call unattended generative reinforced learning. So what is this? Is AI learning from AI. So you don't need to generate the data in order for an AI to learn. Okay, of course, always we need a base, but right now we are beyond that base. So.
Yep, no, totally true. Just going back to the language question, one of the points that's really interesting here is morphological complexity. It says there, which is the amount of information that's contained either in a number of characters or in a minute of speech. And so some languages are much more dense than others. Is what's turning out from some of these models. All right, well, let's just keep going. What are some of the other things that we need to do for our workshop? So it's all very generic here, isn't it? Let's
push it more.
Yeah,
push it to be more specific.
Yeah, no. Okay, be more specific on topics we can cover related to information integrity. Be very terse. So that's another thing. So I've got some custom instructions for ChatGPT. So out of the box, it basically speaks very. It sort of puts all the caveats and adds a large language model and so on. And so you have, you can create these custom instructions. I'll show you mine in a minute. That along with toning and, really just, telling it to be really, terse here. I think terseness is probably going to be the key human skill working with these tools going forward. In that we're just going to drown in terabytes of information online, and so our ability to actually focus our attention on any one particular meme or idea, concept, is going to need to be really, really focused. Right. So, of all of these, pick a number, someone, and let's go and explore one of these. We're going to number 5. Really?
4 hours later.
Okay. Okay. So I am more interested in the data science of ethics than the ethics of data science. All right. This is my personal position, which I'm up on stage, so I'll put it out there. But I think that you can basically collect. There's ethics is 2 different perspectives. You've got prescriptive ethics, which is that is right and that is wrong, and then there's descriptive, which is that this group of people think that it is sort of wrong. This group of people think that it's really right, and then you could imagine like a big data cloud of clusters of people with particular positions on any ethical position, and so my sense around the ethics there is that, especially as the world becomes smaller and more connected, and you see that the people on the content moderation teams in the big tech companies, in Meta and what used to be in Twitter, not there anymore. They would have, you've got very country-specific moderation standards and effectively ethical standards, and so how would you what's your question there, Mike? Solve.
No, let's get quite specific into examples of ethics in AI. So give me 10 examples of ethics in AI and then we'll get into the solutions for each one.
Okay, 10 examples of, sorry, my L keys, of ethical
use cases.
Yes, you want a use case, ethical problems with, and potential solutions to each. Three potential solutions. We'll get straight to solution mode, shall we? So what I love about these models is they, so as you said already, don't take anything that comes out of this as verbatim, but it really is a sort of scan across the totality of all the information it's been trained on, and there's like just billions and billions of words and tokens in there, and so as a way of exploring the information space, I think it's pretty, pretty effective. For a start of 10, and then you can get it to rephrase this. So you can rephrase this into a report, right? So rephrase this into a report suitable for a government department or for an export company. All right, okay, let's go and have a look at some of these, Mike.
So one question, the next question would be, so if you get scroll back to the top.
Yeah.
With the first training set, maybe ask it, how can ChatGPT-4 guarantee that those data sets better represent different groups?
You will not get the answer, but you can ask.
Okay, how does GPT-4
utilize diverse data sets to better represent different groups?
Training data sets to better represent non-English. Oh, let's just say different groups.
You will get an answer like a government official.
Yeah.
That's how you're placing government.
Oh, that's interesting. I must be in browse internet mode, so it's actually going to go and find that. It's going to go and find that for me. So, This is obviously too hard to answer by itself. All right, what other areas can we go into? What did you come into the workshop wanting to find out? Yeah.
Give me just 1 second.
Sorry, just shout out, just be loud.
No, we have also...
Oh, you got to record our people online. Hey, Kira.
Hi, I don't know if this is a question we can ask, but this is what I came in here hoping to find out, because there's a lot of debate about the ethics of where AI is going. And there's already a lot of concern. I mean, she brought it up in terms of the language inequality. And in a previous session, one of the panelists brought up the fact that we have sort of neglected those who don't have access to technology, let alone AI. So now the concern is, and we've already seen it, AI representing a lot of stereotypes. So when they represent people of color, like women, it's very, excuse the language, slutty, whereas every time they put up an image of a professional, it's a white woman or a white person. The image of terrorism, we know it's going to be a person of color. But now this is just going to be amplified even more, especially when people of non-English speaking languages don't have ability to put out the data that AI is going to harvest. So who is looking into it, or what can we already start doing to kind of like inoculate or preempt the bias before it becomes to a level that we cannot address?
Okay, two parts to that question. First of all, this is just a really good, if you're ever trying to explain the issue, I think this is a really good, really short video.
Why we should avoid mixing therapy with biased AI image techniques. What does a typical prisoner look like? What about a lawyer, a nurse, a drug dealer? What about a fast food worker, a cleaner, a terrorist, or a CEO? These are all images created by an artificial intelligence image generator called Midjourney, which creates unique images based off of simple word prompts. These exaggerated biases that AI systems create are known as representational harms. These are harms which degrade certain social groups by reinforcing the status quo or by amplifying stereotypes.
So that's a video by the London Interdisciplinary School, which you may have seen already. Yeah, look, I've personally been in this this space for quite a few years, and I think that I come from a software development background, and so with that, you would find a bug, identify what was causing the bug, and fix the bug. And I think that the whole AI industry is hyper aware of the issues of bias in the models that they're putting out. And I think that they are going to great lengths to train the models to respond in ways that adjust more towards and this is a question, is like, which biases do you want to keep and which ones do you not want to, take out? This is really interesting. This was some research which basically plotted various different large language models onto the political compass, and so if you want a more authoritarian model, you go with Llama. If you want libertarian, then GPT-4 is your choice. But so the bigger question is, where should the model go? Should all models be in the middle? I mean, first of all, to be honest, this says to me more about the fact you've got a really, really simple framework of the political compass underneath it, which is like 2 dimensions, and I don't know, probably only a few thousand parameters under there or anything. Whereas these models are trained on billions of parameters. So the models are probably they probably contain models of global value systems and ethics way more than some of the more established frameworks around that. So the question is if we identify biases inside models, which is pretty much the work that's being done, what's the optimum lack of bias or bias for a model? And should all models be the same, or should there be a complete diversity of models?
Does that come under regulation?
You could regulate it. You could basically specify a set of and it'd probably be more in terms of the harms that might come from that. Would probably be not to cause harm around certain things. But it's a big when people talk about the ethics of AI and the bias in there, it's like, well, going back to my data science piece, it's like ultimately everybody around the world's got 8 billion people on the planet. Everyone's got a different ethical position and a different set of biases. So, do we want to basically hold up a mirror to all 8 billion people, and then how would we do that?
Can I give an example?
Go for it.
I know to help. As regards biases, the concept on AI from a data perspective, I'm a data scientist, so is the alignment, is how we align these models, how we align them in order to work properly for the job that they were selected. Okay, so we cannot align or give instructions to a global thing that is in all contexts, in all cultures, in everything. So one thing is the alignment, and the other thing is ethical implications from people. There is a huge research from MIT that it's called empathy machines, and they continuously, and if you Google empathy machines or ask ChatGPT about empathy machines, you will see that people, in terms of selecting the harm, we have the classic example that you have an autonomous car that goes and sees what? Sees an old lady or a baby, or shall kill the baby or the lady, shall protect the owner or just kill the owner. Does a selection, what is the best selection? 5 babies?
Or work out basically what's going to cause the least damage to Tesla and cool.
Probably, if Tesla is set to decide, but if the concept is that we have some kind of selection, the empathy machines study proves that if you leave to people to decide about the least problem or the least harm, they decide even harsher than the actual machine. So we have all the selections that an AI did in terms of damages, and you can see that, for example, the damage that can do a machine sees an old guy and someone else sees an immigrant. Okay, the machine sees a human female, someone else sees a prostitute. So the bias is not about AI models, it's about humanity. Okay, so in order to debug the actual models and align AI not to do good, we need to debug humanity. Okay, so don't wait for the bad model or for the good model. We need alignment too, because we are full of biases.
Yeah, and if you extend that one out as well, if you think that we're just scrolling through X and Twitter and all of our various feeds and Meta, in some way that's almost doing reinforcement learning from AI feedback onto our brains as well. And so in many ways there's a sort of two-way interaction, and potentially human brains are being aligned by interacting with these AIs. Does that answer some of the points, or is it just getting a little bit abstract out there?
Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know about everybody else, but personally for me, it's not about the model. Obviously, we build software too, and it's a tool is a tool is a tool. It's how you use the tool, it's how you design it and what it's for. But we're also talking about the context of data and information integrity. We're coming from a region where data collection is inconsistent, inaccurate, non-representative, and it's not about whether the model understands the vocabulary and can be applied. I work with a lot of programs around women's empowerment, and the lack of gender disaggregated data to figure out whether something actually helps or hinders a woman is actually either non-existent or against policy in some countries. So for instance, in Singapore, it's against their constitution to collect gender disaggregated data. How do you then avoid some of the pitfalls in terms of the applications of AI in those environments where the data just won't catch up? It's not about the model, it's about the regulatory framework, about the data collection. the data access. But also, as you mentioned as well, and what was mentioned in the last panel, there's a whole population, almost half of Southeast Asia, that's in rural communities where internet access is wishful thinking. And so how do you ensure equitable access to technology like this? So it's not necessarily a comment or criticism on the tool. It's just that this is another thing that's accelerating the differences between the different economies.
All of the above. And you look at the pace at which governments move, that probably we wouldn't traditionally look to solve some of these challenges. And yeah, they don't move at the speed, and they're pretty conservative. So I mean, I think you are certainly seeing internet access continue to grow and reach most of the world's population. I think don't know what the latest stats were. I think it's 5 billion people now. Are online, and increasingly people are able to skip technological generations, and so to get broadband wireless and maybe even satellite internet now, pretty soon, within 1 or 2 years. So yeah, in terms of access to the technology, I think we're going to continue to see that to roll out. All of these models, especially the open source ones, and this comes back to that open source question, is you've got the ones at the very bleeding edge, which is OpenAI, Anthropic, Google's Gemini model that's coming, maybe a few more at the very, very front end edge. But then you do have this very, very fast following open source community. All of Meta is open sourced its model, its Llama model. And so the ability for technologists in any region of the world, any country, with internet access and access to computer, to actually to self-train, to learn the skills. It's an opportunity as well as inequity there. But yeah, how would they when they've got to go and earn a living, how would they do that? I don't know. I think the economy isn't structured to to encourage people to do open source contribution as a career in our region. Yeah.
But the concept is going back to the thing of actual trainings, because we are now in a moment that with $300 you can have an open source model of 8 million parameters running locally in a laptop in a rural village and connected to 3G. So it's a huge moment in history, but we need media literacy, we need literacy actual and access to that.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this presentation. It looks really brilliant. It's also what I have in mind when I came fly over across the Pacific to come here to see how what information integrity and how digital can add up to your life. It's just like a personal reflection, and I think it might be biased, of course, because I'm human, so I'm biased from time to time. Also because of my background as well. So from what I see here from your demonstrations here on OpenAI, I also try to explore the AI, the ChatGPT myself for the past couple of months. From what I can see here, I think there's also a missing of credibility, because I don't see reference here or citations.
True.
I'm not sure how trust or reliable it is.
So if you use it, there's a few out there. So Perplexity is one that I use. So yeah, if I was to tell me the main issues on AI ethics, right? And this is one that does do referencing straight off. So it's a big question actually. So the ChatGPT is just based Bard. They've been playing around with Bard. So Bard is Google's large language model that they've got out there, and that will give you an answer to a question with no references whatsoever. And then it will say Google the same question, and it will take you to the classic Google search page. But it just doesn't have it. So there are, I think what you will see, so you see here, this is Perplexity is basically creating references here, and then basically, yeah, I can then go click on reference 3 there, and that'll take me off to the Council of Europe's site there. So I think it's a user interface issue, and it'd be the ChatGPT one. So there's a number of different options you've got. If I go right from the very top, sorry. So if I create a new chat here, then you can see here that I've got the default, which isn't connected to the internet. I can get it to browse the internet as part of my search, which it did there earlier, and I think this one came back with, if I go back to, usually does put references in there, but I can't actually see one in there, so that's interesting. And going right back to the Mike's question anyway, the specifics of how GPT-4 utilizes diverse training sets have not been publicly disclosed, which is interesting. Yeah, so I think play around with the tools. In my country anyway, we've just relied on Google for 25 years to tell us what the answer is, and just sort of comfortably, blithely gone through life, just this giant technology company. That's a pretty good result. Another one I've been looking at here is Metaphor, which is really interesting, using a large language model as a search engine option. So this is really good, not an added site here. Cool. Well, how much time? Oh, actually,
we have one more
question.
And there was like a kind of a discussion about the language availability, the diversity, the multilingual. There's also another thought pop up in my mind because I'm from Cambodia, by the way. Yeah. So all of this thing is not available in our country.
Right.
And so I was thinking like, how could we utilize this? Like beyond just for the most of the English-speaking countries, how can we use it in the developing country for social impact?
And why? And so, just tell me the reasons why are because the companies haven't released it into Cambodia, or it's actually not allowed.
If you use it, if you try to access to the link with a VPN, it just say it's not working in your country.
Yeah.
So for me, when I use it, because I use it in my profession. When I use it, I need to subscribe to the VPN.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I mean, again, that will probably roll out over time.
They are adding more countries. There are a lot of models. Google,
Anthropic just announced that they've released Claude 90 markets, I think. So this is me going to Google now to ask the answer. Question?
Yeah, it's just, I finished my master's on AI and ethics just at this point, but was just before the boost of generative AI. So I researched a little bit in other models that are not so advanced like generative AI, like for example, recommendation algorithms that we are living with for more time than generative AI. I loved your workshop, first of all, congratulations. There is one word that we try to connect to AI that sometimes doesn't fit for me, and maybe it's a key to understand what you brought to us, is that we connect AI to a tool. The word tool, for me, is more a language than a tool. And as a language, but as in another paradigm, in another model to see the world. This is because I think the very first main ethical impact of AI, even before the generative AI, is the way it frames the world for us.
Yeah.
It's a critique from other means like television and radio. They did the same critiques 56 years ago, and AI is a mediation, as you said, to the world as well. So it frames.
And it's very dynamic, right? So this is
exactly
changing at an incredible rate, and it's kids' generation now they won't know a world without this. And this is the constant reflection on this is the worst it's ever going to be, right? It's just, and in a year, it's just transformed itself. So I think, just my personal approach, and I'm sort of very much more of a technical optimist than a pessimist, and so, which is my disposition, but is to basically just get in there, get hands-on, and use it, and see how useful I can make it. What I thought I'd do just to wrap up is, we've just had our conference here, so our workshop, so give me a prompt for DALI for a photo of the workshop participants. Let's see what it comes up with. Here we are. Create a lively and colourful photograph capturing the essence of collaborative learning and curiosity at the harmony. All right. There we are. So let's give us that. Come on, finish up. It's a lot. That is a pride. That is a long time. All right. Well, look, so I literally only got access to DALI 3 a few days ago. So let's see what it comes up with.
100% not in Australia. Do we have one final question? We have 6 minutes until DALI does the best job. As regards what Alex said, to frame something that has the intelligence in the name as a tool is at least naive. So I want you to touch artificial intelligence like you touch alien intelligence, like you touch foreign intelligence, like you touch everything that has an intelligence. Okay, you need to touch the intelligence. Okay, it could be us.
Okay. Yeah. Harmoning info minds. So
you need to send us this to post it as to
future people workshops. It's literally AI. There we go. That's the one. So fantastic.
The AI.
Yeah. Kira, thank you so much for
a huge round of applause. Thank you very much.
So, shall we call it a day? You want more? So thank you very much. We will continue. Photo. You want photo or something? Okay.